And we're off and rolling on a Tuesday. Happiness is a choice. Thank you for choosing us. I am Ari Temkin along with James Westling. On this Takeaway Tuesday, or maybe it's a Throwaway Tuesday, a lot to get to, including, of course, reaction to last night's Big Monday, which was a very big Monday. We've also wrapped a bow around the football season at large, with the NFL and college football officially being in off-season mode. 3 teams in the Big 12 in the top 5 of the latest AP poll. Kansas surging at number 9. James, how are you?
Man, I'm good. Probably not as good as you, but I'm good. Here in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I thought you'd be proud of me because I ordered a local staple for my game day meal yesterday.
Oh, yeah?
Shout out to Hannah Q Smokehouse here in
Nice.
Baton Rouge.
Let's get some smoked catfish last night.
Cajun barbecue is what I'd
Yeah.
call it.
Yeah.
Cajun barbecue. Didn't want to rock the boat too much. And actually, I text my wife about 30 minutes before tip-off, before we went on the air. And I said, 2-meat barbecue combo dinner before game was a mistake.
Did you make it through?
Made it through.
Good.
Man, what a night last night. So ESPN, and I didn't know this until last night, ESPN promotes Big Monday across all of their ESPN networks each and every Monday. So we know that the Big Monday game was obviously KU in Arizona, but also the game before, Louisville scores like 115 points. That was bananas. But then the games that are on E2 and even EU are also Big Monday games. So the Alabama State Southern HBCU SWAC showdown that actually a walk-off 3 buzzer beater for the win for Southern. Like, it was just a great night of Big Monday basketball all across the board, and then I got back and stayed up until way too late after midnight because I was glued to the KU Arizona game.
Yeah, and cheers to all the Modelo full-time fans out there. Modelo fan rules, number 35. You've said, quote, if this guy develops more times than you can count. That's, of course, Modelo fan rule number 35. Cheers to you, the full-time fans, powered by Modelo. We are taking a look at the top 5 newcomers at tight end in the Big 12, and former Michigan tight end Jake Butt joins the show later on to talk about the position and some of these transfers that we're going to be talking about that are from the Big 10. But, yeah, last night, Allen Fieldhouse, it has been a wild and turbulent season for Kansas, to say the least. And we're not even through into March yet. So many twists and turns, but last night was as good as it gets for Kansas hoops, for KU fans. Kansas topples Arizona. Kansas over the Wildcats at Allen Fieldhouse, ending their 23-0 season, now 23-1. And, Allen Fieldhouse is just different, James. There was a fever pitch last night. We knew it was going to be amped up. I don't know if any of the crowd, once it was announced that Darren Peterson wasn't going to be playing, if they felt like that had taken away from the game, but you wouldn't sense it in the crowd. The crowd made it appear as big of a game as it was. And look, Allen Fieldhouse is one of the best venues to watch any sports game, anything across any sport. It was incredible last night. It was loud. It was raucous. And Kansas, without Darren Peterson, James, gets the dub. Flory Badunga was phenomenal. Melvin Council didn't shoot the ball particularly well, but I thought he was phenomenal. Bryson Tiller was phenomenal. And Kansas just had Arizona in a straitjacket, especially the second half of that basketball game.
The crowd was a huge factor in this game. That's why Allen Fieldhouse is the most special environment in maybe all of sports, definitely college basketball. And a lot of broadcasting crews like Dan Schulman and Jay Billis talk about it's their favorite place to go. Jay Williams has been very complimentary, a guy that played at Cameron Indoor when he was at Duke. And the crowd, when they played Kid Cudi's remix of Pursuit of Happiness, like that viral clip, it just chills, goosebumps. And there's a lot of really impactful environments in the Big 12. I love the Fertitta Center. I love Foster Pavilion when it's full. I love the Zoo down in Tucson. But Allen Fieldhouse is special, and I think it's the historic aspect of it, that you fit 16,000 fans in a venue that's a lot smaller than these arenas that are newer, that seat not as many people, but the actual building is bigger. Just packing that many bodies into that small of a space and having them that close to the floor, it was deafening. And it was a huge factor in this game. Like, I know we'll dive into all the numbers, but if you had told me 3 or 4 things going in, I would have thought Arizona, on paper, won this game by 15 or 20. So the crowd definitely played a role, and it was special. Man, it was special. Like, that's what you want for a big Monday game in the Big 12, regardless of venue, regardless of teams. You want an action-packed, like, down-to-the-wire, nail-biter that comes down to the final possession in front of a audience like that.
Yeah. And, to not storm the court, it's got to be the only building in America where, given the circumstances, they didn't storm the court. Even North Carolina stormed the court against Duke after their win. I know it was an amped-up win, but you're North Carolina. Act like you're supposed to be there. So, for Kansas, the first time ever beating a number 1 team at Allen Fieldhouse without, the presumptive number 1 NBA draft pick and a guy that's been one of the best players in college basketball season, to go up and beat that team that has that much depth, that much strength, that much physicality. Yeah, it was incredible. And, I think for KU fans, the last couple of years of so many frustrations of really not enjoying the basketball that the team would put on the floor, like, this team is the complete opposite. It's almost like they're more likable without Darren Peterson. It's kind of bizarre. But Melvin Council, Flory Badunga, Bryson Tiller, like, those guys play for the name in the front of the jersey.
And that's what's been missing the last 2 seasons.
Yeah.
It's been the last 2 years where the guys that Bill Self has brought in via the portal just haven't been the right fit for Kansas basketball. There hasn't been that it factor, that swagger. And Bill, Coach Self kind of acknowledged that this offseason. And Norm Roberts shed some incredible insight in how he built this roster. He was very strategic and very specific in terms of the type of player that he wanted. And Melvin Council's the prime example. Like, this is a guy that is more productive at Kansas than he was at St. Bonaventure. And before that, he was at Wagner. And before that, he was at a junior college. But he's a New York kid who kind of has, like, he's got that New York point guard mentality where there's just something special about the way they play, where they're physical, they're in your shorts. It doesn't matter that Melvin Council shot 6 of 25 last night. Like, it was not a good shooting effort, but he got to the foul line. He found ways to score. He really bothered Jaden Bradley, and I felt like took Arizona out of their offense on a lot of possessions where Arizona just manhandles the opponent. Like, Kansas was the aggressor, and the crowd was a huge part of that, like having that environment behind you. But the crowd's always been there, right? Like, the crowd was behind David Coit, and the crowd was behind McCullough. The crowd has always been there for Kansas. But this team just fits everything that is Kansas basketball to a T.
Let me ask you, what was your biggest takeaway from Kansas's win last night, ending the perfect season for Arizona?
Yeah, I would say just kind of what you alluded to with their fight and their grit. Kansas scored a go-ahead basket with 9.5 minutes to go. Like, this was a game that had been back and forth, but Arizona led a good majority of it.
Yeah.
And like I said at the top, if you told me going in that Arizona would out-rebound Kansas, that Arizona would make more threes than Kansas, that Darren Peterson would not play in this game, all 3 of those things, in my eyes, like, that would have led to a 10 to 15 point Arizona win. But it wasn't that way. Like, Kansas just they were not going to be beaten last night. Doesn't matter who the opponent is. Like, they would have beaten the San Antonio Spurs last night. It does not matter. Like, that team was not going to lose in that environment. And that's what was most impressive, because in college basketball, in this one and done transfer portal NIL era, it's hard to find teams that play that hard. And last night we had 2 of them on the floor in Allen Fieldhouse.
Yeah, well said. I just think the physicality, the defense. Arizona had 45 points at halftime. It was 45-42. Arizona had a lead. They were up most of the first half and were playing really good basketball. And then the second half, they just got completely out of their game offensively. I'm not sure if it was the crowd, the defense, a combination of both. And look, we've been starting to talk about it, but of all of the great coaching jobs that Bill Self has done, basically having to manage two different teams, like I don't know what the turnover numbers were, but Kansas had a bunch of turnovers in the first half of this game. They just looked out of sync because they had gotten used to playing with Darren Peterson, right? I mean, the guy played 34 minutes on Saturday, probably a big reason why he didn't play and quote unquote got the flu for this big Monday game. And I mean, it's like he's got to coach different teams right now, James. It's incredible what he's doing to manage these two different rosters essentially in minutes. And I mean, we'll get into all the Darren Peterson stuff coming up and whether or not just shut him down. But he's coaching two different teams right now.
And he's coaching two different teams, and I don't think that he knew he was coaching this version of Kansas until pretty close to tip-off. Like Darren Peterson practiced, Darren Peterson was expected to play, and then he couldn't go. Now, Kansas has been in this position. Bill Self has been in this position numerous times this season, so he knows how to manage it. But to your point, the slow start, I think, a lot of it was dictated by that, hey, we thought we were going to have him. We aren't, and it's almost like muscle memory where you've got to go back to riding that bike that does not include Darren Peterson. This may be Bill Self's best coaching job ever at Kansas because of all his teams that were one seeds year after year and winning multiple Big 12 championships in a row, like those teams were just littered with NBA talent. Those teams, they could play their C- game and still beat you. This Kansas team is not quite built that way. Like, I'm not saying that they're not talented, but Bill Self is coaching above their skill set, I would say. I mean, there's a few pros on this team, but there's not like 5, 6, 7 like some of his other Kansas teams. And to do it, like you said, with Peterson in and out of the lineup, the growth of Flory Badunga has been incredible. Like 23 points, 10 rebounds. He completely took Koa Pete out of the game. He had a couple of huge blocks, which were rare occasions in this game that swung momentum. And then Jaden Bradley, who's used to getting into the lane and getting to the foul line, like Badunga was a problem. And he's a great example of a guy who stuck it out. Like he could have transferred. He almost transferred to Indiana. Indiana came after him hard, and they offered him a bag, and that's where he's from. And he entered the portal, and then remember he removed himself from the portal and said, I'm coming back to Kansas. And it's the best thing that ever could have happened to that kid because he is a completely different player.
Yeah, well said. We've got a lot to get to today, including breaking down this game. We'll hear audio from Bill Self and Tommy Lloyd following Arizona's first loss of the season. Kansas improves to now 40-0 under Bill Self on Big Monday with Houston coming to Allen Fieldhouse in a couple of weeks for Big Monday. A lot to get to in terms of previewing the games this tonight and the rest of this week in the Big 12. So we got a lot to get to this morning here on a Takeaway Tuesday. Plus, again, of course, keep it locked in to Big 12 radio throughout the entire football offseason because the offseason never sleeps. As our Modelo fan offseason stretch continues, we're talking tight ends coming up later on in the show and the top 5 newcomers at tight end in the Big 12. Let me ask you this, James, as we kind of wrap a bow around football in the regular season. So now we have the national championship in college football and the Super Bowl champ. Any big picture takeaways for this season in football overall?
Both sports combined?
Just football. Like any takeaways, any copycat blueprints to look at? Just any big picture thoughts?
No, I think where I'm headed is something that would apply to both, and that is that, and we talked about this at length yesterday, it's a new era of college and NFL football in that defenses are winning the game. Like defenses are ahead. We have pivoted back to the late 90s, early 2000s where it doesn't matter how good your quarterback is. It doesn't matter how many running backs are averaging 5-6 yards a carry or electrifying wide receivers that can stretch the field. Defenses are the story. And you look at college football, and it was consistent with Miami and their run. Ruben Bain, they don't get to the college football playoff championship without him. He's expected to be the number 2 NFL draft pick coming up in April's draft with Texas Tech and their rise, which was all those incredible Texas Tech teams over the years. We think Mike Leach, we think Kingsbury, we think Mahomes, we think offense with Graham Harrell and Michael Crabtree. And the story from their season was their defense. And then in the NFL, Like I was watching before our game last night, a bunch of ESPN like 30-minute programming with PTI, which I had not watched in forever. Rich Eisen's doing a show now that follows that on ESPN2. And a lot of talk was about Sam Darnold and the Super Bowl and Drake May and how the quarterback play wasn't great. And I highlight more how incredible those defenses were. There were, like 6 sacks in the first half of that game? Like in this era of – and what are the 3 things you say about the passer? You say you've got to have a passer, you've got to have a guy that can catch passes, and a guy that can rush the passer?
No,
are those the 3 things?
Football, close. Football's about 3 things. It's about the quarterback, protecting the quarterback, and rushing the quarterback.
Well, right now, the biggest of the 3 is rushing the quarterback. And I would say number 2 would be protecting the quarterback. Because number 3, the quarterback itself, right now I would say my big picture takeaway would be that that's third of those 3 things. Teams are getting to the quarterback, and that's been a difference maker at both levels.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. More specific to your point about the defense is the rush and the passer piece. I mean, Seattle got after Drake May in the same way that last year the Eagles got after Patrick Mahomes. Defenses have caught up to offenses. And what's really interesting, too, is when you look at Seattle, they drafted Nick Emenware out of South Carolina last year, and he was, arguably the rookie of the year on the defensive side. He wasn't, but he should have. And he's a very versatile safety that can play linebacker, that can play safety, sort of in the vein of the John Haycock 3-3-5. So when you think about just how much defenses have evolved and what they're doing in order to meet, this offensive firepower that exists across the league is due to having versatile players that are multiple. And that, I think, came from the Iowa State rush 3, drop 8. So it shows you how influential the Big 12 is across the sport of football, because that has really taken over, and not just schematically, but in finding the right types of players that can be versatile, can be multiple, or not just box safeties or cover safeties. They're both. They have to be.
And when you look at what Texas Tech did last year with David Bailey and Romello Height and all those guys that got after the quarterback, and Jacob Rodriguez and how incredible he was in coverage and just a tackling machine. So coming into this season, I look at Texas Tech and how they've reloaded in the portal up front on their defensive line. Then I look at they add Austin Romaine, the linebacker from Kansas State, and now they have a quarterback who they believe can be their closer in Brendan Sorsby. Like, that is the formula. And then elsewhere in the league, like Kansas State adding Wendell Gregory is maybe the most underrated portal ad of the offseason. The Big 12 freshman of the year, the edge rusher who is a 5-star kid out of high school, very productive at Oklahoma State last year, transfers to Kansas State, and then they have a quarterback who is capable in Avery Johnson that we think should finally take that massive step forward under Colin Klein. Like, there's a lot of defensive guys in the portal that are going to be major game changers in the Big 12. And we spend all this time highlighting skill positions, and I'm as guilty as anybody. Like, I go to receivers and running backs and quarterbacks, but really the defensive ends and the defensive tackles and the linebackers – and then the offensive linemen, like that series we did yesterday, there's a couple of teams in this league that I think have massively upgraded their offensive line that's going to be huge. And we could see a major uptick from the quarterback position because of those guys protecting up front at Texas Tech with the offensive linemen they've brought in, at TCU and how different they're going to look, at Houston, where I'm really excited about what they've done in the trenches. It's a different game, man. Like the spread offense era is a thing of the past. Defenses have finally caught up, and it'll be fascinating to see what the next wave looks like. And maybe TCU's ahead of the curve, going back to the ground game with Gordon Samus and a lot of play action and zone read stuff with their quarterback. Like, I cannot wait to see how versatile these Big 12 offenses are.
That's James Wesley. I'm Ari Tepkin. This is Big 12 Today, Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo. All right, on the way next, we break down what we saw last night at Allen Fieldhouse. The good, the bad, and the ugly from Kansas's win over Arizona, plus BYU Baylor tonight. We're previewing the games ahead. And is Bill Self finally fed up with Darren Peterson? That's next. This is Big 12 Today, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios. Here are the top plays from this week's Player of the Week.
Only player in the country averaging 20 and 10. JT Toppin. Flip to Tiller.
Nice.
Lob to Bidunga, and they throw it down. Flory off the feed from Tiller.
You know, it's funny, John, when you talk to the Kansas coaches, you go back 10 years.
Watts. Oh, he's rejected. Bidunga came in and helped out Tiller.
Because Kansas's defense has been excellent.
Tiller, lob,
Nice.
Bidunga!
Yeah. Great call.
He'd been so quiet for so long. His first points of the half. And Bidunga rejects Toppin. Good basketball.
We talked a lot about him.
Yeah, 0 16.
Yeah, 0 points, 4 turnovers in that first half.
Nice job on the lob, and they'll run a lot of those alley-oops. And you see Sanders under stress that time. Jayhawks picking up the D. Another alley-oop. Bidunga. It does so.
Their ability to share the basketball. Now, I know analytically a lot of people will disagree with me, but it's like a layup for him, Tim. And you saw that jump shot right there. He had to fall away from the baseline. 6th in the country. Field goal percentage at almost 68%. And obviously those two are first in the league.
How about that?
6'10" with a 7'3" wingspan. They like that. He contests. He can be better defensively, but boy, can he pass the ball.
Another rejection by Bidunga.
Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios. Thanks for hanging out with us today and every day, every morning, 7 to 10 Eastern Central, 8 to 11 Eastern Time, right here on your home for the Big 12, TuneIn and Big 12 Studios. James Westling, Ari Temkin. James is in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, where he called Southern Alabama State last night. Of course, we all watched Arizona and Kansas with the Jayhawks ending the perfect season for the Wildcats, 23-0, now 23-1. One loss to the Big 12 now. Darren Peterson does not play. And here's what Bill Self said, giving his initial thoughts after this win for Kansas at Allen Fieldhouse.
Were great. We were awful early and too sped up and maybe too excited and did play well. And then Mari and BT kind of kept us in it early, and then things kind of leveled out. And it was a pretty even game for the last 30 minutes and five. What was it? 5 at halftime or 3? And then didn't play well at all start second half, and it went to 11, and then we just kept grinding, and the crowd was unbelievable. The crowd wouldn't let us get tired, and it was a fabulous night. We played a really good team, and we didn't play great, but they didn't play great either, and so that's kind of what you're talking about, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Kansas, they're three-point shooting defense, their defense overall, I mean, clamped down to the second half of this one, James. Arizona really struggled to score in the second half. I think they went like about 8 minutes without a field goal. They went 1 for 14 from the floor during a 10-minute stretch in the second half. You know, I mean, you always have away fans that visit Allen Fieldhouse or watch games at Allen Fieldhouse and think they're getting completely jobbed by the refs. And look, they did miss a Flory Bidunga travel. But, I mean, you went 1 of 14 from the floor for about 10 minutes. You want to complain about refs, you want to complain about not hitting shots against a great defense, you know?
Yeah, no, I think that's well said. I'm glad you brought up the travel. I wanted to get your thoughts on that because our buddy Fran, lost his mind on the ESPN call. And
I mean, it wasn't travel. It was clearly a travel.
Yeah, it was. And the play that Artie and I are talking about, so Flory Bidunga, I can't remember if it was an offensive rebound or an inbounds pass, but he left his feet and ultimately dribbled. He took like a power dribble, but it was a second thought dribble, and he left both of his feet. So he suspended in midair and dribbling, which is by rule, a transfer. Or a travel, yeah. And the refs just flat out missed it. Now, in their defense, it's a really congested area. There's a lot of bodies down there, but the fact that all three missed it was a little bit head-scratching. I don't think – Artie, when's the last time a travel's been called on Kansas and Allen Fieldhouse?
It's been a bit.
97,
it's been
I believe.
A bit.
Maybe 98. I can remember a Svi Mikhailuk travel at the end of a Kansas State game where he took off from half court to score the game-winning layup about 16 steps to the basket. But I'm not bitter. I'm not bitter.
No, of course not. Look, again, 1 of 14 from the floor for about over 10 minutes in basketball game time. Like, that's – I don't care how many travels they didn't call or, you know, the foul discrepancy. By the way, I thought that despite, you know, more free throws being shot by Kansas, like, they were more physical, especially in the second half. Arizona has not had teams match their physicality. Kansas is ready to match their physicality in this one. Kansas ripped off a 25-9 closing surge, and that was basically the deciding factor here. Bidunga also had this volleyball spike. Arizona, it looked like Kansas was going to win it. They were up 2 possessions, then they allowed Arizona to creep back close, and then Bidunga closed the door with a volleyball spike of a blocked shot. Krivas was phenomenal. So is Braden Berries. Man, is he a stud or what? The dude hits threes. He's strong going to the rim. Jaden Bradley was off this game. Like, Arizona just missed a lot of shots, was not good, but I thought Krivas and Berries were very good. And then the other side, Bidunga had probably his best game. And Council was 6 for 25. Maybe he was a little bit too juiced up. But despite 6 for 25, I thought he was one of the best players in the game.
Yeah, and I think Bill Self said it best in that, like, this wasn't a great game. Like, he said both teams played bad. And I think the stakes that were on the line in this one, the crowd, like, there's a lot of factors that went into that. This was more of a rock fight, and it's not a bad loss for Arizona. It's probably big picture, like good for the Big 12 because Arizona's still a 1 seed if the NCAA tournament started today. They won't play in an environment like that the rest of the season. And for Kansas, like Kansas is inching into the 2 seed conversation when it comes to the big picture. Like they're top 10 in all the analytics with or without Peterson, which I am really intrigued by how the NCAA tournament selection committee is going to evaluate not just Kansas, but some other teams that have missed key guys, like Texas Tech when they didn't have Christian Anderson and lost to Kansas at home. How will they evaluate that win or loss? Win for Kansas, loss for Texas Tech. But Koa Pete was 2 for 11. He only had 6 points. The leading scorer in this game, Melvin Council, goes 6 for 25, as I noted earlier. But the thing that I loved about this game was won at the rim. Like, this was an old-school game where you have elite post players in Flory Badunga for Kansas, who had 23 points on 11 shots. Bryson Tiller, we didn't talk about him, 18 and 8 for Bryson Tiller on just 13 field goal attempts. And then Mo Krivas had 14 points and 15 rebounds. And my analyst on the game I had last night did a great breakdown of how difficult it is to find true post players in today's era.
Yeah.
Because they all want to be guards, and they all want to play on the perimeter, and nobody wants to bang on the interior anymore. And Badunga, who grew up a soccer player, has ballerina-like footwork, and he has bought in to being an elusive 5-man who's always in the right position. He's excellent on the glass. And I just think he's a guy that you can really lean into, and he's going to be a problem for a lot of teams in the NCAA tournament because, again, most of these teams in other conferences don't have superior inside play like we do in the Big 12 with all these guys, and then JT Toppin at Texas Tech and Sunak at Houston. Like, it's a league that's not just guard-driven. Like, there are some really good post players.
Yeah, well said. Here's what Bill Self said following the game about Melvin Council.
Melvin Council, how can you have a bad day when you're around him? I mean, to me, he's put his handprint on this place as much as anybody possibly could in the short amount of time he's been here. I mean, he owns this place. He's as popular as any kid that we've ever had play here. You guys follow it. He is. I think the pleasant surprise of who he is has really made this enjoyable for everybody.
Yeah, well said from Bill Self. He's become a fan favorite. He's a dog, and Kansas has needed a dog the last couple of seasons. And I thought, after the game, Bill Self was really emotional. He was hugging players. He hugged Melvin Council. I thought that was a really powerful moment because I'm sure Council has surprised Bill Self as much as he's surprised Kansas fans.
Absolutely. I mean, like I said earlier, he's been better at Kansas than he was at St. Bonaventure. But there was something about the way he plays defense, the way he attacks the basket, his length. He's listed at 6'4", but he's got like a 6'7", 6'8" wingspan. He's long and rangy. And I find it interesting that Bill Self is saying, he's the most popular kid on campus. Everybody loves him. I wonder how Darren Peterson feels about that. Like, this is not Darren Peterson's team. He's an elite player. He's going to be the number 1 NBA draft pick. He is a star that is a player that we won't see another guy like him play college basketball for a really long time because he's that special.
Yeah.
But the big man on campus is Melvin Council, and I think it's a lot of because he's leaned into the history of KU basketball. He's extremely knowledgeable when it comes to guys like Sharon Collins and Tyshawn Taylor and what they meant to Kansas basketball. And even though he's only here for a year, he's having a huge impact. And he's a great kid. Like, they asked him on the KU get to know you page, what's the significance behind your jersey number? And he said, well, my father and my mother both wore number 14 in high school. Who inspired you to play basketball growing up? He said his parents. Tell us about your favorite basketball moment as a player or a fan. And he said giving away shoes and taking pictures with fans after a game at St. Bonaventure. At St. Bonaventure. Think about what that's like now, walking the campus of Kansas in Lawrence. Like, he's living his dream. And that's what makes him so easy to root for.
Yeah, well said. On the other side, of course, Darren Peterson does not play. He has a flu game. He's out for the flu. So he played 34 minutes on Saturday, scored 14 points. Didn't look great, but played 34 minutes. And then he sits on Monday, a few days later, with the flu. So if you're keeping track at home, we've had 3 flus, an ankle sprain, hammy tightness, hamstring cramps, quad cramps in just 24 games. That's quite the smorgasbord of maladies. What's your take, James, on Darren Peterson sitting this one out?
So there's a lot to unpack here. The text that has gone viral, which is anything private anymore.
Right.
When you're sitting courtside at a game and you want to throw a text to some of your buddies in a group text and it gets this kind of a reaction. The text was a lot of speculation. All right. This was not a KU staffer. KU spokesperson Daniel Burke publicly clarified that he was a contracted ESPN crew worker responsible for game stats. He was the stats guy, and those are contract guys that are usually either local or hired by ESPN and flown in to do stats for the broadcasting crew. He had no affiliation with Kansas. He wouldn't have been at practice or at shoot-around. So I think it was a guy just trying to look cool for his buddies. With that said, the flu-like symptoms and his agent and his parents being around the bench and in the tunnel, and ultimately he's pulled into the locker room. I tip my hat to Kansas and the guys that played in this game that they didn't let it become a distraction, and that they went out there and they fought their tails off. And it's almost like, is this team better without him? I don't think that there's a drop-off, right? Like, Kansas is a 2 seed in my eyes right now with him or without him, because I think when he doesn't play, this Kansas team plays maybe even a little bit hungrier. Like
they're out to prove something. Yeah, no,
yes.
It feels like it almost fired them up when the announcement came down. Here's what Bill Self said about the Darren Peterson situation.
Yeah, because we thought he'd go. Yeah, we thought he'd go. So I thought adrenaline would kick in, and he would go. So, and he was at shoot around today. I mean, he was out there, but just what you could just tell, he didn't feel great. But we were all hopeful that he'd kick in and be ready to go. So you sound like you bet on the game. But no, there was no ploy with that at all.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, James, he's like Goldilocks. This porridge is too hot, this porridge is too cold. Like, it's got to be the perfect conditions, I guess, for him to play. Obviously, there's video of Darren Matsubara, his agent, and his family, and all the different wheeling and dealing they're doing before the game. Look, it's easy to react today after this huge win in Allen Fieldhouse to be like, they should shut him down now and just move on with this team, right? Because they looked so good. It's obvious that their ceiling is so significantly higher with him, but it's just the suspense of the whole deal every game. That's the part that's just maddening, and I'm sick of it. Is he going to play? Is he not going to play? If he does play in the game, is he going to finish the game? There's so many factors and so many things that are going on right now. And meanwhile, you've got a team and a group that is playing for the name on the front of the jersey, and one guy that's not. Again, like, they have a higher ceiling with him, but I'm at a point now, as I've been, where it's like, shut him down. He's doing more of a disservice to the team and the team's psyche overall. They're not going to play. Offense is significantly harder for Kansas without him. Obviously. He is an offensive machine. He is an NBA player playing in college basketball. And you're not going to get buckets like you got against Arizona at Allen Fieldhouse last night in the tournament, right? Like, those things, that's a huge difference. But I don't know, man. Like, this team's just more fun. They're easy to root for. And they don't need the perfect conditions to play. They just go out there and play. And you've got to think, like, in the back of your mind, and I know a lot of KU fans are thinking this, like, where's your pride, man?
Yeah. Yep. He's the guy that wakes up in the morning with a sore throat and a runny nose and wants to lay in bed all day, and so he calls in sick.
I think I've talked about this, but I'm reading the Walter Payton autobiography, Never Die Easy, to my 10-year-old son Asher right now. And the Never Die Easy is the premise that, the book's about, and it's Walter Payton's career, where, he never took the easy way out. He would never shy away from contact. He'd never run out of bounds. We live in a world, in a society right now that is just constantly dying easy, looking for easy exit ramps, easy reasons to avoid doing things. and Peterson's the latest example of that. He's a hell of a player. He's going to have a great NBA career, and I'm sure this will just be one speed bump on his way to NBA stardom. But the way that he's treated Kansas this year and the way that this has been handled has been egregious, especially from an alumni perspective. And for somebody that in a program and Melvin Council's never die easy. This program right now is never die easy. Darren Peterson looks for easy exit ramps, and he's dying easy, and it's frustrating.
Man, and there was an anonymous NBA general manager who said they're not worried about his injury stuff at all because guys in the NBA, if they play 50 to 60 games, they consider that a win on an 82-game schedule. And you know what I love about Bill Self's comments is Bill Self didn't exactly have his back. Like Bill Self,
we thought he was going to play. Yeah, right.
Yeah, I'm not saying that Bill Self doesn't have his back as a generality, but like Bill Self didn't stand up there and really defend his guy. He said, "Hey, he was at shoot around. He was fine. Yeah, it was a surprise. Almost kind of like whatever. We moved on." And the injury stuff, I can get. You don't want to further aggravate a hamstring. You don't want a Achilles to rupture because of a bad ankle or knee or whatever it is. But to have a little sniffle, to have a cold, to have an upset tummy, and you're going to sit out the biggest game of the year and not even try to give it a go. Like if he was fine at shoot-around and started feeling bad from 3 in the afternoon until an 8 p.m. start, like you've got 4 or 5 hours to hydrate, and at least try. It's to me the fact that he didn't even try. He didn't put on the jersey. He didn't go out there and try to give Kansas 10 or 15 or 20 minutes against the number 1 ranked team in the country. Like this wasn't Green Bay. This wasn't UMKC. This was Arizona on the biggest stage on a big Monday, and you choose to sit this game out because you're under the weather. This was the biggest travesty of all of the games he's missed because of what was on the line.
That's James Westling. I'm Ari Tepkin. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo. Shreyas Laddha gives us his insight into the game last night. Alan Fieldhouse and, of course, Darren Peterson. It's Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo. Heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios.
Here are the top plays from this week's Newcomer of the Week.
That was ridiculous from Curry there. Really feeling it. See if they go back to Saunders. It's Dibonsa, and he nails it. When he double-teamed him or they blitzed him in the pick and roll, so 2 times on 1 possession, he's seeing a lot of bodies. That's 2 straight threes, though. 12 points already tonight, despite some pesky defense from Oklahoma State.
Well, those are 2 elite names to be associated with right there. Look at the ATO. Dibonsa, remember the transition got him going early.
Sponsored by Marco's Pizza. Get your Marco's Pizza now at marcos.com. 16 points in the first half for Dibonsa. Here he comes, striding and rocking. Air AJ to tie it.
AJ Dibonsa putting his imprint on the game here in the first half for the Cougars. Dibonsa on the floor and 1. AJ Dibonsa.
Harwell the whole way. He's backing up. There's no way he can get legal, and he can't do anything about that. That was a really smart play by AJ. When you have a defender backpedaling in transit.
Saunders lost the handle, kicked it over to Dibonsa. Ball fake, jumper, got it.
Watch now, this excellent defense with a bump, up fake, step through, and we always say that that's his real estate. Got a mismatch, they think.
Dibonsa inside, a little bit short, and the throwdown, AJ.
Kansas gets the 82-78 win over Arizona. The Wildcats, the number one team in the nation, now 23-1. Kansas, 19-5, 9-2 in the Big 12. They've won 8 straight after starting 1-2 in Big 12 play. Let's talk about the game and the side stories with Shreyas Laddha now, Kansas City Star. What's up, Shreyas? How are you?
Good. How are you guys?
Doing very well. Let's just start. Let's put the Darren Peterson thing to the side for a second. Kind of your reaction to last night's game. What an incredible performance by KU to win despite not having Darren Peterson.
Yeah, I mean, you get the biggest win of the season against the best team in the nation. You find out Darren Peterson's not playing 30 minutes before, let's say, an hour before the game. Like, it would have been so easy for them to go out there and lay a complete dud. But that's not this Kansas team. Like, that's not who they are. They win a lot of games that they shouldn't win. I mean, we saw it in Texas Tech and Lubbock, really. They win games they have no business being in. They're always around, it feels like. And it was a complete team performance despite missing Peterson. Tremendous defense in the second half. You got 4 different guys who scored double digits. Jamar McDowell, he fills in for Peterson. He has a great first half, keeps them in the game, keeps them within striking distance, 10 points, I think 4 rebounds and like 3 steals in the first half alone. That was the best win I've seen from this team all season. And it's the type of win that makes me think I might be covering some basketball late into March this season.
Shreyas, what stands out about Flory Bidunga and his growth from last year to this year, and then almost in season, like the player that he's become from where he was back in November?
He's been tremendous defensively. I think the big thing is he's not committing fouls as much when he's guarding guys. He had kind of that issue, especially early in the year. He can switch 1 through 5. I feel like he feels comfortable. I mean, the confidence level he exudes on the court is so big. I mean, he said after the Utah game, he's almost like daring guards to kind of go at him so you can see if they can get past him. And a lot of these guys cannot get past him. He's great at shuffling his feet, great at making a wall. And he's been a terrific help defender this year. I think the way I describe it is like, it seems like, Flory's guarding his guy, and then he comes out of nowhere when somebody from KU gets blown by, and he just comes in and blocks the hell out of it. And he's just been so much fun to watch on that end. And he's just grown a ton, I think, defensively compared to where he was even at the start of the season.
Yeah, what do you think was the difference in the game?
That's a great question. I mean, it's kind of hard to point to one thing, but I'd probably say the defense of the second half, right? I mean, Arizona goes scoreless for 4 minutes there, and that's enough for Kansas to kind of get back. One of the great things about this Kansas team is we've seen them play well without Peterson, and they have a different gear that they kind of use, right? It seems like if Peterson had played through his flu-like symptoms, I felt like we would have missed them playing to the capabilities they're able to, because they'd probably be trying to feed Peterson the ball despite him being sick or whatever and not being 100%. Melvin Council and Bidunga, like, they combined for 32 points in the second half. Like, those are big, big buckets. And Melvin was not good from the field. He shot 25 shots yesterday, and I was like, oh, I didn't realize he took 25 shots. He's 6-25. Okay, that's not great. And there was a great exchange about that post game right before the pressure started. Flory was like, man, deadass, he's like, pass the rock. 25 shots? Come on, man. And he was like, 25? Okay. But the biggest thing with this team is they see the level of, ceiling they have to reach with or without Peterson, and they seem to kind of hit the bar game in, game out. And I feel like they really like each other. Like, I wrote this on Twitter the other day. The vibe around this team is really, really, really good. I haven't felt a vibe this good since the first season when KJ Adams was playing center on the KU beat for me.
No, I'm so glad you brought that up, because Brian Haney, the radio play-by-play for KU, clipped this shot of after the game, like Bill Self spent about 2 minutes with the players, and then he let him back on the court and into the crowd so that they could take pictures with fans and talk to the people. Like, I don't think Bill Self has ever done that, number one. And then number two, how does the team feel about Darren Peterson? Like, when you say this team is really connected and they like each other, and I get the same vibe, but is Darren Peterson an outlier, or is he part of that?
I think, it's a weird thing, right? In the sense, like, two things. Bill Self also went on the mic and had the little, the thing that Cal does after every game where he talks to them. I've never seen Bill Self do that. He said he was extra emotional last night because I think he knows what they have to do to beat a number one team in the country, especially without their best player. As with Darren Peterson, I think there's some level of these guys get it, right? They're in the modern day NIL age. They know what's at stake for Darren Peterson. Yeah, maybe he should have played through flu-like symptoms yesterday. But in actuality, it probably, helped them out that he didn't play through because they would probably spend the first 20 minutes of the game trying to play Darren Peterson ball, which is not going to work against Arizona if he's not 100%. I think they still like him. One of the things, this is not a great metric of, paying attention to who likes who, but I paid attention to who said happy birthday to him publicly on Instagram the time he had a birthday. And there was a decent amount of teammates in that fray of, like Melvin Council and Flory Badunga and et cetera, like core guys who sent out, maybe that's just them doing a nice thing or whatever, but not everyone's posting about everybody on the team with the birthday. I think he's still pretty well liked. I'm sure there's some semblance of frustration at times because they want him out there more than anything, but I think they get it. I also don't think he's faking this thing. Like everything I've he's dealt with like 5 different things this year. You could argue maybe he could have played through 1 or 2 of these things, but every one of these guys, when I talk to them or whatever, or you talk to them after the post game, they talk about how badly Darren wants to be out there. And I think Darren does want to be out there. We can say his camp is overly cautious. That's completely fair. But I think Darren wants to be out there.
So how do you, is this just how it's going to be, Shreyas? Do you think that despite having a much higher ceiling with him, that just this mystery surrounding his play, whether or not he's going to play or finish games, is it too much of a distraction? Again, I guess I defer to you here. From my vantage point, it feels like it's far too much of a distraction. I know the ceiling is so much higher. I get it. It totally is. But it's also, to me, tenuous at best.
But guys, this is just modern college basketball. The generational talents have every college held by the metaphorical. I'm not going to say this on air, but it kind of is what it is. Like Bill Self knows that, and this is Peterson. He's a good guy, even if his camp is a little bit extra, right? What happens next year when likely Tyron Stokes comes to Kansas? And I know you guys know how interesting Tyron Stokes and his camp is. Okay, like that could be 10 times worse.
Yeah, good point.
With the Peterson thing, I will say, before this game, the last 2 games he played 35 minutes each. He didn't cramp in either, according to Self. That was a promising sign. I thought things were moving into the turnaround until this flu-like symptom stuff. I'm sure he'll be ready to play against Saturday against Iowa State. But I think they're going to have to just go with the mindset of, like, you can hope and pray that he plays every game, but his camp is ultimately the decider. I was told this yesterday, that KU has one guy that essentially talks to his camp throughout the this thing. They don't have like everybody talking to Darren Peterson's camp because it would be a little too convoluted. But I was told they're always in contact with Peterson's parents and Mott's and his agency and all this other stuff. I don't know if KU's ever had to do this with any other player in the history since like Wiggins and Embiid. I don't know, somebody like that. But there's some level of the camp has influence that I think Bill Self has never given a camp ever in his tenure that I know of.
All right, Shreyas, what's up with Tyron Stokes and his camp? You got to add a little more there. I've read some, but I want to hear it from a guy that's a lot closer than us.
Well, allegedly, I'll say he was kicked out of school for fighting. Right, guys? So like that's not great. I've dealt with his camp a little bit. He's a different character than Darren Peterson. Tyron Stokes is a lot more fiery personality is the way I'd use the word. Peterson is much more quiet and keeps to himself. If we think Peterson and his camp are an issue right now, I am more worried about Tyron Stokes, to be quite honest with you, if he comes to Kansas, which I think I'd have told it seems like that's the likely possibility. But this is the risk reward. Generational type talent, superstar type talent, really. comes to campus, can you keep up with them? Can you deal with them and make sure they don't get into trouble, whether that's on the court, off the court, whatever. One thing about Peterson is he's never going to get in trouble. I'm not going to say Tyron Stokes is going to do that, but I think there's a higher possibility that Tyron Stokes is, the time in between games, I'd be a little more worried compared to somebody like Darren.
Well said. Shreyas Laddha, Kansas City Star. Shreyas, you're the best. Appreciate you, brother. Be well.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Great insight there on the Kansas win last night and the Darren Peterson saga with Shreyas Laddha from the Kansas City Star. With James Westling, I'm Ari Tebkin. This is Big 12 Today, presented by Modelo. Valid or void, Big 12 edition next. It's Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo. Heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios. Check out the top plays from the Big 12 men's basketball starting five.
You can tell Agnew more to go. 4 to shoot. The ball's in Carr's hands. Deep three. Back-to-back triples. And here comes Carr. Takes it all the way himself, and Cam Carr has become unlocked.
Cameron Carr in transition. Keeps his body control. When you see
the players you want to keep on your roster. Johnson lost the handle, a little out of control.
Guess who made that happen?
The lob to Carr, who dumped it on his own teammate that time.
Heisey playing well, not necessarily shooting well. That guy is. Wow, Cameron Carr from way outside. 5 of 9 from deep for the Bears here on the road. They got themselves a 3-point lead. Best 3-point shooter in the country. Air ball or tie. Najee. Here goes Carr on the attack. Carr scoops it in.
How athletic is he?
Williams. Agbin gave it up. Carr for 3. Good.
That is an outstanding offensive possession. And the ball movement to get to Carr. You saw Momcilovic show out, but with his hands both down.
Final minute here from Ames. With a terrific day of college hoops still to come.
The quality of his three-point shot had gone down, and that's just a size advantage over the top of Lipsy there when you look at Carr.
Iowa State's got to get it in. They do. Torrey lost it. Stolen by Carr. Carr's going to attack. Carr blocked from behind and will dunk it home.
We've got BYU and Baylor tonight. Arizona and Kansas last night. Big 12 Radio brought to you by the Full-Time Fan by Modelo. Coming up, we will get into the 5 best newcomers at tight end as our offseason football series continues. Along with James Wesley, I'm Ari Tepkin. It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio, and it's time now for Valid or Void.
All right, guys. I'm looking forward to this. This should be really fun. All right. Topic number 1. Oklahoma State will make the NCAA tournament despite their blowout loss to Arizona.
I think that's valid, and the only reason why I say that is because of the schedule that they have left. At Arizona, TCU, Kansas at home, at Colorado, West Virginia, at Cincinnati, at UCF, Houston. So, I mean, the rest of their schedule, I can find 6 more wins. And, I mean, you get to 9, there's a good chance you're going to be a tournament team. But you get to 10, would be 6 more wins, I think they're firmly in. So, I mean, at Arizona State tonight, that's going to be a win. If it's not, they're in trouble. TCU at home next week. Even if you lose to Kansas and Houston, I still think you'd have done enough. But we'll see. They would have 10 wins, be over 500 in Big 12 play with 1 quad 1 win.
Yeah, ask me again tomorrow morning, because I think tonight is the game that will decide their fate. Because it's a game that if you win, it doesn't really move the needle much. But if you lose, it can really send you into a free fall when it comes to all the analytics. And Oklahoma State right now is top 60 in KenPom. They're top 65 in the NCAA net rankings. They are starting to guard a little bit better. Offensively, like, that hasn't been a problem. They're shooting the ball well. Anthony Roy is a walking bucket. They're top 3 in the Big 12 in turnover margin. And I think the deeper you get into the season, that benefits Steve Lutz's teams because they're all about depth and pressure and minutes played. And so they're hoping to wear some of these teams down. And I'm with you. This is a huge week for them. And I think if they go 2-0 at Arizona State and if they beat TCU at home on Saturday, they're on the right side of the bubble. They play Kansas and Stillwater. After that, they're at Colorado, home to West Virginia, and at Cincinnati. I like the way they play stylistically in those matchups. I think they can steal one of those on the road, but they've got to win 2 of their next 3 on the road. And they play at Arizona State, at Colorado, and at Cincinnati. Because if you can steal those on the road, that's a quad 1 win. And that's what they need. They're 1-5 right now in quad 1, but I think ultimately they're going to get there and get it done.
All right, 2 valids there. Okay, topic number 2. The Big 12 will have at least 2 number 1 seeds in this year's NCAA tournament.
Go ahead, James.
Glass half full once again. I say yes, absolutely. UConn and Duke were shoo-ins for 1 seeds, and then UConn went on the road and lost to St. John's Friday. Duke in that loss at the buzzer against North Carolina. That opens up a spot, in my opinion. And when you look at the number of quad 1 games that these Big 12 teams are going to have down the stretch, it is so many more than like a UConn or a Gonzaga or even an Illinois or even Duke. Arizona is a lock. Iowa State is 5-2 in quad 1. Houston is the team I think that has the best path to be a number 1 seed. They're 7-2 in quad 1 games. They're 21-2. They never lose at home. They're up to number 6 in the net rankings. They're top 5 now in KenPom. Houston is the team that I think can grab that extra number 1 seed and push UConn to the 2 line, who's currently number 8 in KenPom. So, yes, I'm buying this. I think there's going to be 2 Big 12 teams that are 1 seeds and 2 teams that are 2 seeds come March.
I feel like I've never been more confident in the Big 12 having multiple 1 seeds than I am today, because I think, for a good stretch there, it felt like the Big 12 may have at least 2 teams in the conversation, and now it feels like there are 4 that have entered the chat. And that, to your point, corresponding with UConn losing to St. John's and Duke falling to North Carolina. I don't know if they lose again, but the Big 12's got a lot of teams in competition for it, and I think just the strength of the league, without a doubt, should matter. It's a long way to say we're going to have Joey Brackets on the show later on today, so we'll have to ask him about this. because it's not too long ago that he said that the drop-off in terms of what teams would have to do in order to go from the 2 to 1 is seemingly impossible at this point for teams that are not in the 1 line, being Arizona, UConn, Michigan, and Duke. I don't know. Like, part of me thinks, yeah, it could happen, and it's probably never been more obvious that it could happen after today, but then I look at those teams and think, are they going to lose a lot more? And I think we could see some blood in the Big 12 here now.
All right.
I guess it's a long way to not answer the question.
Yeah, I was like, what's your answer? Valid or void?
Void.
All right. James is a valid. Ari's a void. On it, the Big 12 will have 2 number 1 seeds in the NCAA tournament. Okay, topic number 3. Despite a 4-game losing streak, BYU will still finish the season in the top 25. Valid or void?
Yeah, I'm going valid on this one as well. I do think they'll finish in the top 25 because they're still ranked as of today. They're still in the top 25. They're number 22, I believe, despite losing 4 in a row, despite being 500 in Big 12 play. With DeBonsa and the pedigree that they have because of what they did in the non-conference when they played UConn to a one-possession game, when they picked up some quality wins on a lot of neutral floors that were high-profile matchups. Like, they still have a long way to go to drop completely out of the top 25. And also, it is really difficult for teams ranked like 15 through 25 to go 2-0 now, any week. Like, we are into the meat of February, and teams all across the country are playing other teams on their same level when it comes to skill and talent. And this is where a turnover, a missed free throw, an offensive rebound can decide a lot of outcomes. And so with all that combined, and I look at BYU's schedule, like the toughest part of their schedule is behind them. Yes, they still have Arizona and Iowa State back-to-back, but they also get West Virginia and Cincinnati and UCF and Colorado and Baylor. I think BYU, even if they play 500 the rest of the way, will be a team that's in the top 25.
Yeah, I think top 25 is valid. Top 15, no. I'm not so sure about that. I think, so far from a physicality standpoint, I don't think they've proven they could beat the top of the league, because to do that at Arizona, Iowa State, Texas Tech, you got to be a physical team. You got to have physical. And they've just not been the more physical, aggressive team. Tonight's game will go a long way. I think Baylor will be fired up. They need a big win. Feels like BYU has gotten the short end of some big wins lately. They've lost 4 straight, 5 of their last 6. Boy, do they need a win tonight.
All right, both valids there. Next topic. West Virginia is the most underrated team in the Big 12.
James?
This one I am voiding. I do think they're somewhat underrated and could still be a tournament team. But the most underrated team in this league is a team that's actually ranked in the top 20, and that's Texas Tech. Texas Tech has fallen to 5th in the Big 12 standings, and all of a sudden nobody's talking about them. They didn't have Christian Anderson. They took Kansas to the wire when Kansas had Darren Peterson. JT Toppin is still playing at a Big 12 Player of the Year level. The league is just upgraded across the board in terms of star power and talent, but this team's going to be a real problem for opponents in the NCAA tournament. With the way they shoot the basketball, with the emergence of Lawan Watts, with Mosley getting healthy and now coming off the bench, the Villanova transfer, who's been a huge impact. They're still expected to get Luke Bamboye, who's their rim protector in the middle. Those are like the final puzzle pieces to what could be a very complete basketball team. I think Texas Tech is still the most underrated team in the league. And their 17-6 overall record, I still think, is very misleading because they played a brutal non-conference schedule and still picked up a win against Duke that is almost overshadowed by losses to Illinois and Purdue. Texas Tech is the team that I think is being overlooked.
Yeah, there are a lot of seemingly underrated teams in the Big 12. Houston, you could argue, is underrated. Iowa State, severely underrated. I mean, I think if we're trying to dig in, like maybe UCF of those, middle tier Big 12 teams in terms of being underrated, they're probably more underrated than West Virginia. But I'll say this: West Virginia, TCU, Oklahoma State, one of those teams is about to emerge here And that's the most underrated team in the Big 12. But yeah, I mean, I think you can make the case pretty much anybody other than Arizona right now is extremely underrated. So I'm going to avoid this.
All right, double void there. All right, next topic. I think I know the answer to this. Valid or void? This is Bill Self's best coaching job of his Kansas tenure. Valid or void?
You know, I feel like this is something that's been brought up a ton throughout Self's tenure, and I don't want to be a prisoner of the moment, but I don't think he's ever had circumstances like this, so I'm going to validate this. You know, Bill Self, it feels like, is constantly redefining what are his best coaching jobs, seemingly on an every-year basis, and the last 2 years have not gone well for him, and I think so it's sort of a combination of, you know, people wondering, myself included, has he lost a step here? Is he still as good of a coach as he was? Is this his last year? And the fact that he's basically having to coach two different teams and, you know, doesn't even know when he's going to be coaching two different teams, that proves just how difficult of a year this is and how well he's managed it.
Tell you what, I'm going to void this because there's one other season that sticks out to me, and it wasn't that long ago. The 2022 team that won the national championship, I think, was his best coaching performance.
Yeah.
And if this team does that, then yeah, they're right there. But remember, they brought in Remy Martin in the portal, who was the Pac-12 Player of the Year, was a 20-point-per-game point guard at Arizona State, and he did not fit. He only started 13 games that season, and there was a lot of similar stuff around him that there is Darren Peterson, like how much is he going to play? What type of effort are you going to get when he's out there? And all of a sudden, come like Big 12 tournament time, Bill Self had him locked in. He was fantastic in the Big 12 tournament. He was a huge part of their run in the NCAA tournament. And remember, that was Jalen Wilson's sophomore year. He was still kind of a developmental prospect. David McCormick was KU's big guy who felt like for a while there, every time KU threw it into the paint, it was going up.
Yeah.
He started sharing the basketball more with Brown and Obaji. I look at that 22 team, and that was a absolute masterclass by Kansas. Remember, they lost to Kentucky by 20 in the Big 12 SEC Challenge.
Yeah,
and they were
right.
really.
I mean, that's a great call. That's a great season. They were down 12 in the national championship game against North Carolina. Right. I'd say it's hard to disagree with that.
All right. Okay. Next one, guys. Despite the loss last night that Arizona suffered, they are still the best team in the Big 12. Valid or void?
Man, this is a good one. This is a good one because, you know, they really hadn't played many of the upper echelon teams or a close game in conference play in a long time. They're still number 2 in the net. They're still number 2 in the KenPom. They've got the number 2 defensive efficiency rating in the country. But they haven't played Houston, and they haven't played Iowa State, and they're 0-1 against Kansas. They haven't played Texas Tech. Man, I hate to straddle the middle here, but I don't know.
Oh, come on. Get off the fence, James.
Valid. They're still the best team in the Big 12. Darren Peterson or not, you go into Allen Fieldhouse, you don't shoot it well. Koa Pete goes 2 for 11 from the floor, and you still have a chance to win in the closing seconds. Remember, Iowa State played Kansas in a similar spot and got beat by 20. I'll say Arizona's still the best team in the league.
Yeah, valid. One loss like this at Allen Fieldhouse, I don't think changes what they've done the entire season. I mean, I think now you may have a case that Houston, you know, could be the team to beat right now in the Big 12, but no, I think for now, this doesn't change much of my thoughts on Arizona. You know, they don't play the NCAA tournament at Allen Fieldhouse, so that's a good thing for the rest of college basketball. It's a bad thing for Kansas. This is valid.
All right. Double valid. Okay. Oh, this is my last one. This is a bonus one. This wasn't on the sheet. I'm glad you guys, queued up Allen Fieldhouse. So Kansas, 8-game win streak. Their first win came against Iowa State. So valid or void? Allen Fieldhouse is the MVP this season of the Kansas Jayhawks.
Yeah,
valid or void?
It's I think I read a stat that it's the first time Opta Stats, the only Division I team in the last 40 years to knock off 2 15-0s or better in the same season. January 13th, Kansas beats 16-0 Iowa State. February 9th, Kansas beat 23-0 Arizona. So how's that? Yeah, I mean, Look, Allen Fieldhouse is one of the best venues in sports. If you're lucky enough to ever watch a game in there, it's one of the best places to watch a game, period. And, everybody brings up the fouls or the refs. Bracket Cat on our YouTube channel mentions, as a KU fan, do you ever feel ashamed about how much assistance the refs have to give your team sometimes? I mean, come on. Bill Self is like 300 games over 500 at Allen Fieldhouse. Is that all officiating? Or is it good players? Everybody gets calls at home. It feels like those are heightened because it's Allen Fieldhouse. Did they miss a travel call? Yes. Did that help Arizona miss every shot they took in a 10-minute stretch? Go 1 of 14? I mean, it is an incredible venue. I think it absolutely is the MVP of the season. But it's the way in which the venue, like you heard Bill Self say, like it keeps the team going. Like if you've got a place where it's constantly loud and raucous and going crazy, it's going to continue to get you fired up. And if Arizona lost because of a missed travel call that got the crowd in a frenzy, that's on Arizona. It's not on Kansas.
Yeah, I'm going to say void. I'm going to void this because the real MVP of the Kansas Jayhawks is Melvin Council Jr.
He got that dog in him.
What he's doing on both ends of the floor, I haven't seen a point guard this dialed in for Kansas since Frank Mason, and he was one of my all-time favorites. And also, spoiler alert, Kansas is also winning on the road during their win streak. Okay, they won at Texas Tech. They boat raced K-State by 24. They won at Colorado, and they're doing it with Peterson on the floor, with Peterson off the floor. It doesn't seem to matter. They're just as dangerous right now on the road. So, yes, Allen Fieldhouse certainly helped. And if this game was played in Tucson last night, Arizona probably wins because you just have two really good teams that were ready to protect their home floor. But until Kansas starts losing more on the road, and remember, like West Virginia, UCF, like those were those schools' Super Bowl, for lack of a better term. And they highlight that game, and they have it circled on the calendar, and those aren't bad losses now as we get to the middle of February.
That's James Wesley. I'm Ari Tepkin. This is Valid or Void. It's Big 12 today, Big 12 Radio. Let's talk big picture Big 12 basketball. Plus, still to come, our top 5 tight end newcomers in our series as we continue talking football throughout the offseason. He's James. I'm Ari. It's Big 12 today, Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo. Heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios.
Check out the top plays from Big 12 men's basketball starting 5.
It's been the 1 weak area for Dak. He's just has a hard time finishing around the basket.
Speaking of finishing at the rim, Xavier Edmonds. Closing stages of the first half. Edmonds still a long way from the basket. Trying to back his way in, turns the corner and... Oh, what a follow there from Punch. Couldn't put it back up and in. Sped inside and hello, Xavier Edmonds. Pierre assists. How did he thread this needle?
Well, he kind of got hit from behind. He probably got fouled. And
the offense that has been up and down this season, big part of their story so far. Good looking stroke. That's Xavier Edmonds, who is in the midst of his best stretch of basketball in his career. Marcus Johnson, who had 3 total points on the season entering this one, has hit 4 threes in the half. He's got a dozen. Boy, a badly needed basket by Edmonds.
Yeah, you talk about those 4 turnovers. They also have not gotten good looks here of late. And now you see TCU, getting the ball inside. That's their strength. That was a big concern for Kansas State coming in. And now if you're TCU, can you get the ball inside to your bigs?
Edmonds exploding to the rack. Clinging to a 1-point lead. Brock Harding, 4th in the Big 12 in assists with an exquisite dime to Edmonds.
Big 12 Radio. This is Big 12 Today. In 20 minutes, names to know, Big 12 tight end transfers, the top list of the newest tight ends in the Big 12. That's coming up in 20 minutes in our continuing football offseason coverage here on Big 12 Today. You know, it's interesting, James. It feels like there's just a lot of elite teams in college basketball right now. Like, as we try to figure out who the 1 seeds are, who can win a national championship, like, there's probably 8, 10, 12 teams that I think if they get hot at the right time could win the national championship this year. Like, there's a lot of elite basketball at the top. It's very unique. It feels like there's nobody that's above the fray in terms of being elite of the elite, except that there's just a bunch of teams that are elite.
And I think some of that has to do with NIL and the transfer portal and those schools at the top separating themselves. And basketball's, different than football, where there's a lot fewer players that you really need to hit on when it comes to building your roster. And I also think that this is just a really unique year in that there are so many sensational one-and-dones, like guys that whether they come back to college for a second year remains to be seen, but there are a boatload of one-and-done prospects, not just in the Big 12, but you've got the kid at Illinois and Michigan and UConn and Michigan State's got some really good young freshmen. Arkansas and Louisville, their freshmen put on a show last night. So it's nationwide. But, like, when it comes to March Madness, I feel like, once again, it's going to be chalky like it was last year, because the gap between these elite programs at the top, I don't know that it's ever been bigger. I can't remember a season, and I had the data a couple of weeks ago on the last time we had multiple teams that deep into the season that were undefeated, when it was Arizona and Michigan, and it had been since Baylor during COVID. Like, teams don't start 23-1 on a regular basis. Like, there's multiple teams in the country that are 23-1 or 22-2, and like the top 8, top 10 between everybody else right now, it looks to be in a league of their own.
All right, I want to talk some of the big picture storylines across the Big 12, including here's what T.J. Otzelberger said. Iowa State's definitely under the fray in terms of being, discussed with the elite of the elite in college basketball, despite the fact that they probably should be, because they are elite of the elite, top 10 in both offensive and defensive efficiency, according to Kent Baum. Here's what T.J. said about not talking about the Big 12 championship.
Yeah, we've never once talked about a conference championship. We've never once talked about striving for a conference championship. Again, we believe so much in do what's in front of you, get better that day, maximize what you have in front of you, and that will take care of itself over time. There's so much that happens over the course of a Big 12 season. There's injuries, there's guys that get hurt, there's sicknesses, there's so much that comes at you. There's a time where your team's playing a little better and a time where your team's more confident. So to me, ultimately, what you're trying to do is fight for that day and being your best that day, and then the results take care of themselves, the outcomes take care of themselves based on the consistency of the habits. So we haven't talked about anything beyond, honestly, having a great practice today and being at our best tomorrow. Whatever that all may be and how it's supposed to be will play out, but the only control we have over is what's right in front of us.
All right, so there's T.J. Otzelberger talking about, we've never really discussed winning a Big 12 championship or making that a goal. We just try to win every day, James. And look, I think culturally speaking, every team is going to be different in terms of, their approach in that. I for one, think it's, good to have sort of both the short-term and long-term goals in mind from a team and leadership perspective. But every team's different, and every leader is different, and every approach is different, and it's hard to argue with T.J. Otzelberger's approach.
And they have the ultimate leader running their offense in Tamin Lipsey. Iowa State, they had that 2-game slide against Kansas and Cincinnati. But since then, they've won 5 in a row. And they haven't played any of the upper echelon teams that are in the top 25. But all they've done is beaten UCF by 30, beaten Colorado by 30, beaten Kansas State by 34. They have just completely steamrolled their opponents. And they had a big lead on Baylor before Baylor closed it out on a 14-3 run and made it close in the closing minutes. But their upcoming schedule, they'll have a 3-game stretch against Kansas, Houston, at BYU. 2 of those 3 are at home. They play Texas Tech at home. They play at Arizona. Like, Hilton Magic is real, and Iowa State has been a machine at home for the last decade plus, the last 3 decades. So I don't see them dropping a ton of games in Ames, and they get 3 of those marquee matchups on their home floor. What I'm saying is I think they're in a really good position to be a 2 seed in the NCAA tournament, especially when you look at what they did in the non-conference. Like, how do we just write off a 33-point win on the road at Purdue, in Purdue's backyard?
Yeah.
A win against St. John's all of a sudden is aging very nicely. They're in the top 25. They beat Iowa. That is an aging win that is working in their favor because they're just outside the top 25. So, like, Iowa State, I love that they were your pick during Valor or Void as being the most underrated team in the conference because I think there's a lot to be said about them.
Iowa State visits Schulmeyer Arena tonight to take on the Horned Frogs, 8 o'clock on FS1 tonight. Also tonight, Oklahoma State, Arizona State. That's an 8 o'clock start on the CBS Sports Network. Houston visiting Utah on ESPN2. And I'd say the big one tonight would be BYU visiting Baylor, 22nd ranked BYU. It's 6 o'clock tonight on ESPN2. That one at Foster Pavilion. And obviously a lot of drama surrounding Rob Wright's return to Baylor. Here is what Scott Drew, this is clip 8, said about Rob Wright's return.
I mean, that's what makes college basketball fun. It makes people want to go to games. I mean, we expect our crowd to be intimidating, and as long as we don't cross the line, that's part of the home court advantage. And at the end of the day, I know when we go on the road, you face hostile crowds, and that's why it's partly hard to win on the road. And again, Rob, when he played here, a lot of good memories. Obviously, it's hard anytime people leave your program, but that happens more and more. You prefer it to be not after they sign a contract with you, but it is what it is.
Good shot there at the end there by Scott Drew. He kept it 100, and then at the end mentioned the whole, you'd hope you can keep them after they sign a deal, but here we are. You know, from a motivational perspective, it feels like most of the motivation is on the Baylor and Scott Drew side. Like, there's no players that played with Rob Wright on this team this year at Baylor. So, you know, had there been a point guard that played last year with Rob Wright or multiple players, maybe the motivational side would be there tonight. But that part's tough, where it's like you got a bunch of guys that aren't really motivated by Rob Wright because they don't know who he is.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, they had to overhaul their entire roster, but Rob Wright, I mean, the fact that he signed a contract with Baylor, you assume that player's locked in. And Baylor probably could have come after him with some legal action if that is truly the case. But they took the high road. But the bottom line is, like, Baylor's won 2 of their last 3 games. They have BYU tonight at home. They have a huge game on Saturday against Louisville. And then after that, they play at Kansas State and they play Arizona State. Baylor is still one of those teams that I consider, even with their win-loss record being, you know, less than some of these teams in the middle of the pack in this logjam, like they're the one team that I could see making a push for another postseason bid. They've made 13 straight postseasons under Scott Drew. There's just something about this team and their NBA talent and their athleticism. But, like, Rob Wright put them in a really tough spot because he commits to Baylor or locks in a contract for next year. We had the dates last year on when he entered the portal. It was after the Final Four. It was the first week of April. The most of the activity in the portal was already done. Like, he put them in a really tough spot for finding a true natural point guard, which is the one thing that this team is missing for this season.
And the last thing, big picture, and this is something we touched on yesterday, but the impact that Kingston Fleming's success this year has had on Houston, James, and on Milos Uzan. It's really interesting because Uzan was a guy that was the best player for Houston last year, helping lead them, you know, to the national championship game. And then after the season, he decides he's going to, instead of going to the draft, he's going to come back. And, you know, it's really interesting because most of his numbers from a year-to-year perspective haven't changed. What has changed, though, is the three-point attempts per game. He's averaging now 3.6 three-point attempts per game. Last year he was averaging 5.7 attempts per game. Excuse me. He's actually shooting more threes this year, 5.7, than he was last year at 3.6, but his field goal percentage is significantly down. In fact, his field goal percentage is down to 38% from 45% last year, and his three-point shooting percentage is down 10%. He was a 43% three-point shooter last year, James. He's at 33% this year.
And I just think he's in his head. He's in his head. You know, the one thing that NBA scouts told him to go back to college was
great point.
to improve his three-point shooting. And when the shots aren't falling, you know, it can compound. And he was projected to be like 35 to 40 in last year's NBA draft. The mock draft that I just pulled up have him going pick number 58, which would be, you know, the almost last overall pick to the Minnesota Timberwolves. So his draft stock has slid from where he would have been picked last year. And he's a great kid. You know, he does all the right things. But I just think when it comes to that shot, he's just in his head. And we know he's capable. So a late season surge is almost what I expect for Milos Uzan, because Kingston Flemings isn't playing much different than LJ Cryer played for Houston last year. You know, he's kind of a combo guard who can be the point, who can play off the ball. They're both really efficient scorers. Flemings is just doing it at a little bit higher level. So Uzan, his role in terms of being the second or third scorer shouldn't have changed as much as it has on paper.
Yeah, no, totally. I think you're 100% right. Like, he's had a different role, and honestly, in this year's role, he's probably better suited to position himself for NBA teams, and he just has not delivered yet. And we've talked a lot about, you know, the improvement so many of these guys in the league that we've talked about have made year to year in three-point shooting percentage. One guy, though, that is dramatically down would be Milos Uzan, and it's hard to divorce that from the Kingston Fleming situation. All right, he's James. I'm Ari. It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by you, the full-time fan, by Modelo. On the way next, our portal off-season discussion continues, and we are going names to know, Big 12 tight end transfers. We're listing out our top transfers out of the top tight end out of the transfer portal across the Big 12 as our football off-season talk continues. He's James Amari. This is Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo. Heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios. Check out the top plays from the Big 12 men's basketball starting five.
Flemings, he can create space without fall away, and he does right away. His fourth different stop in his collegiate career. There's a steal. Flemings began it. Why not finish it?
They turned it over 4 times in this game. 4 of Houston's 6 points have come off turnovers.
Flemings on a blow-by. That first step is so quick. And now the transfer from Ole Miss, growing in confidence from an offensive standpoint. Flemings, so quick. 8-0 run. It's now a 10-point cushion. Burks, the iron downright rude to him. He's had 2 halfway down the cylinder and out.
Is that worse than unkind?
It is. Especially when that happens on the back end. Kingston again. You got to get in front of him. Take enough of the artillery away from any team, you're going to win big, and that's what Houston's done yet again tonight. Fleming's just so quick with that first step.
You and basically like having 2 point guards, 2 ball handlers in Flemings and Uzan. 2 guys do such a good job. Look at that, high off the window.
And he's just told Kelvin enough. I think Kelvin probably has to go back and coach his team.
Inside and one, Kingston Flemings.
Kingston Flemings comes to the rescue. Watch that finish at the rim. He is so good at finishing.
Big 12 Radio, Big 12 Today. Great to have you with us today and every day here on your home for the Big 12. Tune in, Big 12 Studios. If you have not yet already, make sure to download the TuneIn app and search Big 12. That way, each and every time you open up the app, you can find us. We're talking all things Big 12 and, of course, all things football. Keep it locked in on Big 12 Today and Big 12 Radio throughout the football offseason, because football season never sleeps. And we are presented by Modelo because cheers to you, the full-time fan who knows no offseason, James. And what is the golden Modelo fan rule about the offseason?
Off-season optimism is mandatory.
Thank you. Presented by Modelo and the full-time fans. All right, so with the offseason in full go right now, we're now taking a day each and every. We're now spending a couple of segments each and every day talking through the top transfer portal additions at each position. Yesterday was offensive line, and today we're focused on tight end, taking a look at the top 5 newcomers to the Big 12 at the tight end position, James.
Yeah, and I think, collectively there aren't any tight ends that are entering this conference that had Joe Royer, Cincinnati type numbers, or Terrence Carter.
Yeah, there's no runaway favorite here. It's a great point.
Completely agree. So I look at fit and potential as I put my list together. The number 5 guy on my list is Cole Rusk, who's transferring to Arizona from Illinois. He's 6'5", 250 pounds, probably the most productive tight end at his last school entering this league. He had 19 catches for over 200 yards and a touchdown. And before that, he was a really, really, really good FCS player at Murray State, where he was an FCS All-American, had over 500 yards. He's tall, he's athletic, he's got a receiver-type, big catch radius. He's got a ton of experience from his playing days at Murray State and at Illinois. I think he's going to be a really nice addition for Arizona and going to be probably their 3rd or 4th option as a pass catcher.
All right, who do you have at number 4?
Oh, we're doing the whole list. Okay, number 4, I've got Jet Carpenter at Texas Tech. Transfer from Nevada, 6'3", 260 pounds. He's an exceptional blocker, and I think he's going to pair really nice with Terrence Carter, who's coming back to Lubbock. He was at Eastern Washington before Nevada. He had 35 catches last year, almost 400 yards receiving, a couple of touchdowns, but he's known as a chain mover. He's big on 3rd downs. He's really good at making tough catches in traffic, and he's a veteran guy. 6 collegiate seasons of football, so he's going to be an older player that can step in and be a factor for Texas Tech right away.
2 guys I have on my list for sure. Let's see if we have all 5 the same.
All right, number 3 for me is a guy who's headed to Lawrence. This is my sleeper pick, and I asked you if you were familiar with Niles North High School in the Chicago area, because that's where this guy played.
Yeah.
Jalen Butler. He's a transfer from Old Dominion. And his stats don't pop. He caught 9 passes each of his 2 seasons at Old Dominion. He missed 1 year with an injury, but he is a freak athlete. He was a 1,000-point scorer in high school playing basketball, so he's got that Antonio Gates, Tony Gonzalez type frame. He runs like a deer. He spent 1 year in junior college where he shined. I think in Andy Kotelnicki's offense in Lawrence, where they love to use the tight end. Think Casey, the tight end that was there before. He's going to be a guy that could have a major role for KU.
He's not on my list, but I love that call. Good one.
All right, number 2 for me, I go out to Provo, BYU. Roger Saliapaga is how I'm going to say that last name. He's a transfer from Oregon, 6'4", 245 pounds. Played in 26 games at Oregon. Only caught 3 passes last year. He was primarily used on special teams and as a blocker, but he did have a touchdown against Indiana in the regular season. His brother played offensive line at BYU. He was a really dynamic pass catcher in high school. He was a 4-star, top 150 recruit. And BYU, I highlight 2 guys for the Cougars on my list because of usage. They love to use their tight ends. He's going to be on the field a ton. And Walker Lyons is number 1. Again, another 4-star recruit. He was an All-American Bowl Man of the Year in 2023 in high school. originally signed with Stanford and then ends up at USC, transfers to BYU. He's a pro. All the scouts love this kid. 6'5", 245 pounds. He's got front end size. He's really balanced. He's a good blocker. And again, I highlight 2 BYU guys because of their usage. They use their tight ends a ton, and I just think these 2 guys are outstanding fits.
All right, James and I have 3 players the same on our lists, and let me get to mine now as I rank the top 5 newcomers at tight end in the Big 12. Number 5 for me is a guy that you had on your list as well. It's Jed Carpenter, the Nevada transfer to Texas Tech. I put a lot of stock into production, and that is going to be a theme across this list and certainly each and every day when we do this. 35 for 374 and 2 touchdowns, averaging almost 11 yards per catch. So he's a big play waiting to happen. And, maybe the reason he wasn't higher on my list is because, the Texas Tech has so many weapons. So I go with Jed Carpenter, the new Texas Tech tight end, on my list. They also added, by the way, a true freshman 4-star, Matt Ludwig, who's got a lot of long-term upside, and we'll see if they kind of used some 2 tight end sets with Ludwig as well as Carpenter. Number 4 on my list is Patrick Overmeyer, the Houston tight end, transfer from UTSA. You talk about lots of production. I think this is a major oversight on your part, James, by not having Overmeyer on your list. In the last 2 seasons, Overmeyer for UTSA, 58 catches, 627 yards, 8 touchdowns, and that's between 24 and 25 at UTSA. So this is a dude that produces, and Houston, as we break it down, has done really well in the portal, adding a lot of productive players. Cole Rusk is where I have number 3. Cole Rusk, you brought him up. He was on your list. The Illinois transfer who's been around the block. He's spent a lot of time across the country, different spots, but has been productive. 19 for 217 and a touchdown last year. Probably wasn't as productive as some of these other guys in this list, but I think he's going to be a huge target for Arizona. I liked him and his potential. Number 2 for me is Tony Livingston, the Baylor addition from Florida. 11 receptions, 119 yards, and 2 touchdowns in 10 games last year at Florida, 5 starts. So, I mean, when you think about him coming over with DJ Lagway, the familiarity, clearly a guy that Lagway liked and preferred, and a reason why, he's been added to Baylor. And then when you look at what Michael Trigg did last year, he kind of reminds me from an athletic standpoint of Trigg and a guy that they can get open down the field. So I think Trigg leaving opens up a huge opportunity for Livingston. Look, I think he was more of a secondary option last year. The fact that he comes over from Florida to Baylor with Lagway, I think speaks to his potential. I think he's going to be featured in this offense. Tony Livingston, number 2. And then we both have the same number 1, Walker Lyons, the brother of Ryder Lyons, the 5-star recruit who's going to take a mission trip this year and then head over to BYU for his freshman season in 2027. But Walker Lyons, probably the most proven receiving tight end in the Big 12 portal class. We're going to have Jake Butt, who's the former Michigan tight end, on with us at the top of the hour. And 2 guys I know that he knows very well, Cole Rusk, who played at Illinois, and Walker Lyons, who played at USC, 2 Big 10 teams adding to the Big 12 mix here, James.
Yeah, and I love that you highlighted Overmeyer and Livingston. Livingston is going to be a huge part of Baylor's offense last year with how much they targeted Michael Trigg, and they're similar in terms of they can stretch the field and cause major mismatch problems for secondaries. And then Overmeyer, he was the dude at UTSA. I saw him catch like one-handed back of the end zone highlight reel grab that was all over SportsCenter. He's a really big frame, and he will be a high-usage guy because Houston loses Tanner Koziol, who is the transfer from Ball State and caught a boatload of passes. He was their second leading receiver this past year. So fit for both of those guys is outstanding. And as we do this, I start to realize there's more tight end production coming into this league than maybe I had initially anticipated before diving into these potential candidates.
Yeah, and I think, it's this list was fun to put together because it wasn't overwhelming in terms of how you should rank these guys. There probably was room to add a true freshman, and there's a couple of big-time recruits, and Matt Ludwig, who I referenced for Texas Tech, but BYU has one too, in Brock Harris, who comes in as a 4-star at the tight end position, aside from Walker Lyons. So, I think it was pretty wide open in terms of how you can rank these guys. and there's the potential for a lot of them. There's also a lot of upside with some of them, but guys that have already produced. So I think, a guy like Livingston probably shows both. And the reason I had Livingston so high was because, if he's coming over from Florida, Lagway liked him and he saw some production there. And I love that you pointed out Jalen Butler, the Old Dominion transfer, because Kansas always involves their tight ends in the passing game, especially with Andy Kotelnicki coming back.
Right.
I really thought long and hard about adding him to my list. They also add Carter Moses. This is the second player they've added as a pass catcher out of Albany in the last 2 years. So that will be a position to be fortified, especially as Andy Kotelnicki comes back, because tight end's a huge part of Andy Kotelnicki's offenses.
And there's a lot of teams in this league that really the usage rate for tight ends is really high.
Yeah.
Utah uses their tight ends. Kansas State uses their tight ends. They're expecting a major breakout season for Lincoln Cure, who is a 5-star recruit and the number 1 tight end in the nation and struggled to get on the field this year at Kansas State. They're expecting big things from him. And, Brock Harris is a guy at BYU that is also taking a 1-year mission trip, so we won't see him till 27, which is why I think they brought in Ryder's brother and Walker, and then also the transfer tight end from Oregon, who I think has a ton of potential, a 4-star kid who's back home. He's from Utah. He's from Orem, just a stone's throw from Provo. So I really like what a lot of teams have done in the Big 12, and the tight end room is going to be deep at Texas Tech with the freshmen, with Carter coming back. That was a huge retention piece for them, and then adding the kid from Nevada. I like the depth at the position in the league.
Yeah, and I think to your point, because you had 2 BYU guys on your list, if we're just power ranking what teams did in the portal or new additions at the tight end position, I think BYU is certainly at the front of the class based on, again, those 2 additions, 2 guys that we think pretty highly of, including, you and I both had Walker Lyons at number 1, and then, Brock Harris as well. So you think about, adding 2 big-time tight ends to the portal if you're BYU, plus Brock Harris, a 4-star tight end. Love what BYU's done in the portal. And I think through 2 days, it's obvious that BYU and Houston have been really picky but successful in the portal. I think Houston's had a really good approach of finding guys that have been productive. Houston's probably, so far through 2 days, the team that is most notable across these lists with high expectations heading into this season. All right, we will do the wide receiver position tomorrow. Cannot wait to be highlighting the top 5 newcomers, whether that be through the portal or through the recruiting cycle at the wide receiver position. On the way next, let's talk tight ends with Jake Butt, the former Michigan tight end, joins us. This is Big 12 Today, Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios.
Here are the top plays from this week's Player of the Week.
Just behind her is TK Pitts, who misses her first jumper. No look into Silva, all the way to the rack. Olivia Miles feeds it to Donovan Hunter. Gets it out to Bielefeld in the corner. Drives, kicks out with a one-handed pass to Miles, who singes the strings from the wings.
And we see that right here, Miles 3. The defense was collapsed and left her wide open, but Kiara Merchant has come.
Stepping in, Kayla King given the continuation, but again, another miss. TCU all over the glass. They have been all game. Olivia Miles doing it herself, flicking it up from the hip and somehow over the top of the rim and in. TCU really started to elongate this lead early in the second quarter and has not looked back. Miles around that high screen, dumps it off to Suarez for 2.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. They're not shying away from those inside looks, making sure they're making those cuts.
Miles did it again. That is, wow, that's tough. Played all those great years at Notre Dame, now weaving through the lane.
I say TCU just out. Toughen CU right now on this possession.
Wow, another run-through rebound. That one Silva on the sheer miss. Can Miles end the possession successfully? Yeah, and her coach, Mark Campbell, is right in her ear celebrating that 3. The other side shutting down Hunter. Deep ball. Miles is good from out there, too.
I was going to say, Olivia Miles just going to keep dribbling and try to create some kind of chaos. And Utah caught in the middle of it.
Miles hits the shot and hits 30 points on the day.
12 Radio, Big 12 today. We are presented by Modelo because the full-time fan knows no off-season, and that's why we continue the football conversation into the off-season. Talking tight ends today as we power ranked and discussed the top 5 newcomers into the Big 12 at the tight end position. Joining us now is a tight end expert, Jake Butt, the former Michigan tight end who does great work now for Big Ten Network, as well as the Blueprint podcast, along with Devin Gardner, who also does fantastic work for Fox and covering college sports. Jake, how are you?
I'm doing great, and I want to give a shout-out in the spirit of tight ends to former Michigan tight end and now Super Bowl champion A.J. Barner. This will segue into our conversation. He originally started his career at Indiana, wasn't really a productive receiver, and then goes to Michigan, and he's known more as a blocker, but was always capable. And, you know, you get in the right system here with Clint Kubiak. I believe he had over 50 catches this year and a key touchdown in the Super Bowl. So much of the tight end position is about being in the right situation, the right system. And I want to give a shout out to A.J. Barner, man, Super Bowl champ. Congrats to him and the Seahawks.
Yeah, and that was a great call because he probably was their best, most consistent pass catcher in that game, with JSN basically
100%.
being a non-factor.
Yeah. Him and Cooper Kupp, maybe. Cooper Kupp,
yep.
He showed up big time. Kenneth Walker, I mean, my goodness, looking back, how did that guy not be a Heisman finalist? It's crazy. The game was boring, but excited to talk tight ends with Yari.
Yeah, same here. And there's a couple of guys I know that you watched with your work with Big Ten, so I wanted to get your thoughts on them, and then we could talk more broadly about the position and your thoughts overall. But, you know, Walker Lyons was number 1 on both my and my co-host James's list for transfer portal tight end additions. He's the brother, of course, of Ryder, the 5-star quarterback who BYU recruited, so he comes to play with his brother, at least not next season, but the season after. But Walker from USC to BYU, I think, is the most proven tight end that's being added to the Big 12 right now.
Absolutely, and I think some Trojan fans were a little shocked. Like, wait a second, man, this guy, he's going into the prime of his college career, has shown some great flashes. Why is he transferring? And I know this is the Big 12 radio, but USC is bringing in this 5-star tight end that they paid a bunch of money. He's going to be a stud, so keep an eye on him. But USC decided to pay Mark Bowman, means Walker Lyons, who is a Mormon. You mentioned his brother is already there at BYU. Is going into that system, and I think not just in the Big 12, he has a chance to be one of the top tight ends in college football. I would be shocked. I mean, he's going to be on the preseason Mackey Award watch list. Just a fluid mover, a guy that knows how to separate, extremely trusty hands. But again, like I said, man, so much of this is on what does your head coach want your offense to look like? What is your quarterback comfortable with? And you could be a special tight end, but it depends so much on the system in terms of production. But I'll just say this, Walker Lyons is capable. He's a guy capable of catching 50-plus balls with no problem.
When you look at Lincoln Riley's offense, is that a tight end offense?
It actually is, and especially last year where they started to prioritize running the ball more. They were in 12 personnel, meaning 2 tight ends, pretty often. And I think that offense has started to adapt a little bit. But, again, it seemed like he was going to be the guy. Lake McCree was kind of the guy at times last year for USC. But now Walker Lyons, man, I just expect him to have a really productive year there for BYU.
One more guy that is coming to the Big 12 from the Big 10 would be Illinois tight end Cole Rusk. And he's a guy that's, I know, spent time other places as well. And from a production standpoint, maybe wasn't, a huge pass catcher. But what did Cole Rusk mean to Illinois last year? What is Arizona getting?
He didn't mean much to Illinois last year because that wasn't their priority. They wanted to prioritize running the ball and throw to Hank Beatty, but you have to go back in time to kind of tell the full story. So he injured he was a John Mackey Award preseason watch list in 2024. He had transferred in from Murray State where he was an FCS third-team All-American, caught just shy of 40 balls for over 500 yards. He has the capability, again, to be productive. But Illinois doesn't prioritize getting the ball to the tight end. So he had a knee injury. He missed the whole 2024 season, which meant last year was his first year back from that knee injury. So maybe that played a factor. But I would not look at the Illinois, what he can be as a player. I would go back to Murray State and some of his early college years where he proved to be a capable pass catcher. And I guess the benefit is if you're not catching catching passes, to get on the field, you better become a good blocker. So you can be a more well-rounded tight end as your career progresses.
Yeah, we're talking tight ends here with the two-time All-American at Michigan, Jake Butt. How in your mind has the position changed?
So I think it starts with the NFL and it trickles on down here. And with the NFL being a salary cap league, you got to look at production measured against the percentage of your salary cap hit. And what we've seen, there was one year where it was the Chiefs with Travis Kelce, the 49ers with George Kittle, the Ravens with Mark Andrews, and I forget the other team, but all four of the remaining teams in the playoffs had high-level tight ends. And the reason is, let's use Kelce or Kittle as an example, those guys have both led the league in receiving, but they're paid as like a wide receiver 20 or 30 or 40. So you get great production as a percentage of your salary cap hit, which then we start to shape our perspective of, wow, tight ends can become a serious weapon, and that trickles on down through college. I think what we've also seen, and Mike McDonald talked about this with the Seahawks, a lot of teams are going into too high coverage. They're trying to take away that. That's why we're seeing the quarterbacks' passing numbers down. So teams have started to prioritize running the ball, which means you need tight ends on the field. Well, if teams are going to sit in too high coverage, you need to find a way to put those safeties in a bind, because the safeties then have to fly downhill to build those heavy boxes and support the run. Well, if you have a tight end that can be a worthy, capable blocker, that can also separate and win against safeties, that's how you start to beat these too high defenses and middle open defenses that we're starting to see. So that this ebbs and flows, eventually it'll go back to one high and then it'll be back to too high again. But it seems like right now that the tight end position is just really starting to explode in terms of its prioritization from different teams.
Yeah, it is really interesting to see the cat and mouse game that exists schematically across both the NFL and college football. And I mean, this goes part and parcel to what we've been talking about as big takeaways from the season, where everybody wants the smart new offensive play caller as their head coach. Like, everybody's so obsessed with offense. And I think, within the last decade, there was certainly a point where good offenses, elite offenses, were beating elite defenses. But I think the Super Bowl is a testament to, and maybe even the national championship game as well, like, defenses right now are having their way with offenses. And so you're right. I think, like, the next adjustment is for offenses to figure out how to exploit the middle of the field, tight ends, slot receivers, those kind of guys. Middle of the field becomes so much more important, and especially probably more so with tight ends when you consider the safeties are becoming hybrid linebackers too. So if you get guys that are just big over the middle where safeties can't cover or aren't big enough, that's a huge advantage the offense is going to have.
That's exactly right. And it's, as it applies to college football. In the NFL, you get safeties that they're of course they're safety, they're athletic enough, but there's safeties that can come down and play linebacker in the box. The NFL now wants linebackers that run 4.4, 4.5 40. So basically, they're the safeties of a decade or two ago. But in the college level, most weeks, you don't have that. Most teams are going to have a bigger linebacker that's going to be a run stopper. They're one-dimensional. Or a safety that's a great cover guy, but maybe not a great physical box safety. So at the college level, you've got guys that are a little bit more one-dimensional for the most part. Of course, there's exceptions. So if you have a good tight end, like you said, that can exploit the middle of the field, say there's a run-stopping linebacker in there, a guy that can get vertical and separate against a linebacker, huge mismatch. Or if it's a safety that's a little bit smaller and tight ends know how to, I love my tight ends to have a basketball background, good rebounding and body control. You should always be open as a tight end if you know how to properly use your body. I was a guy, I probably would have run a 4.8 40. I had torn my ACL, so I didn't compete in the college. I was never fast. But I had a really productive career because I knew how to use my body. I would tell our quarterbacks, hey, I'm always open because I'm going to box these guys out. So there's just an inherent mismatch capability for these young tight ends if they know how to use it properly.
How do you, like a guy like Colston Loveland, who of course played at Michigan after you and had a great rookie season for the Bears this year, like how would you characterize his play? I mean, he's got size, he got speed, great body control. Is that like kind of the prototypical like tight end one right now?
I would say so. And look, he was an excellent blocker this year, and it shocked a lot of people, myself included. I knew he was a capable blocker, but I mean, you look at the PFF grades, he became a very reliable and at times dominant blocker. But here's the thing too, the way Colston gets open, I'd say the number one trait he has is he knows how to separate. There's just an art to separating, to understanding leverage and how to push off and understanding coverages. Where's the soft spots, and then having reliable hands. Colston's not a guy that'll run a 4.4. Darren Waller for the Dolphins is completely different prototype, but both work depending on the system. If you're Darren Waller, you're probably going to split them out and have them run straight line, crossers, vertical routes, posts, corners. Whereas with Colston, you want him running change of direction routes, choice routes, dig routes, slants, double moves, because he's such a fluid mover with his hips. A guy like Colston is quite literally a wide receiver in a tight end's body. I mean, they flexed him out and had him running the full route tree, which then adds another element. If you are not capable of learning the playbook, you're going to limit yourself in terms of what you're capable of as a tight end. For me, I never looked at, hey, what's the tight end's assignment on this play? I wanted to know everybody's assignment so I could go to the coach and say, hey, let me play Z receiver on this, or let me play X receiver. I wanted to be able to play every single position so I could get into those positions. And some guys just aren't capable of that, and that's cool too, but that limits your capability if you're unable to learn the full playbook as well.
Jake, for fans that are watching this right now, that are listening, that have a school that added a tight end in the portal, what are the things you would advise them to look for? Obviously, I think the number one thing you look at when you're evaluating guys your team is added to the portal, it's, all right, what's the size, and then what's their production like? What are some of the other things they should be looking at and looking for?
Historic production of your offensive play caller as it applies to tight ends. I mean, that's going to be a great predictor. I would apply the same thing to quarterbacks because, I played in the same system 2 years in a row, but one quarterback loved throwing to the tight ends, the other one not as much, so it was a completely different season for me, and all that change was quarterbacks.
Wow.
And then I just watch them move. I would just watch these guys move. How well do they change direction? Can they sync? You can just tell a lot. If you just watch 10 to 20 clips, I'd say most people can pick up on, hey, that guy's a pretty good athlete. He moves well. Do they look confident catching the ball? Some guys, I want to see a guy extend his hands and catch the ball one time, just stick right to his hands with confidence, almost bordering on the side of cockiness. Whereas other guys, they catch it with their body. They're a little uncertain. And then to that, to be a big tight end, you got to catch in traffic. You got to catch over the middle. What's their level of courage? What's their level of competitiveness? Because that's kind of like your armor where you're going over the middle, knowing you're going to take a shot, but hey, you're going to pick up a 15-yard chunk play along the way.
And it's probably a straight line between the guys that are okay with that and the guys that are able to stick their nose in and block really well too.
It is. But again, I think the position's evolving a little bit where, each generation is supposed to raise the bar of the prior generation. You look at a guy like Gronk, who's the greatest tight end of all time. He was not one-dimensional. That guy was a better blocker than a lot of tackles in the NFL, and then a capable receiver, and therefore you'll never come off the field. Colston is another great example. I don't think people looked at him as a dominant blocker coming out of college. He became a dominant blocker as a rookie coming off an injury in the NFL. Therefore, he never had to come off the field. So I think most tight ends understand that if I want to reach my full potential, I have to do everything. I have to do the mental, the physical, the gritty blocking, the dirty work. Probably you're going to have to play some special teams as well. So it is a little bit of everything.
Jake Butt, former NFL tight end, two-time All-American at Michigan, now does great work for Big Ten Network. And go check out his podcast as well that he does with Devin Gardner. Jake, thanks so much for your time, man. Appreciate it very much. Be well, brother.
Appreciate it. There's no better way to start my day than talking tight ends with you.
Let's
so
go.
Thanks for having me on.
Appreciate you, brother. Jake Butt joining us here, helping us in our off-season discussion on the best transfer portal additions in the Big 12 at tight end. The full-time fan, powered by Modelo, knows no off-season. Modelo's off-season optimism is mandatory. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios. Here are the top plays from this week's Freshman of the Week.
Benali comes around the screen. She hit a couple of threes in the first half, misses that time.
You can see that she has the confidence.
Meister into Davis. One way, then the other. Beautiful move. Jalea Davis spins. Williams there to grab the loose ball. Evans, Davis, and one. They're second in the Big 12 in offensive rebounds. They've only gotten 7 in this game compared to 9 for Kansas. Jalea Davis catches, got it, and she was fouled. Nichols weaves her way in. Jalea Davis with another rebound, score, and foul.
Had a look. Here comes Nichols. Gets free. Bounce pass to Davis, and one. Good help that time. Fandel jumping out on Devilisi to try to help. Davis, the spin move in the lane and hits. Junior guard from Andover, Kansas. Handling the basketball here. Gets it to Davis. Davis draws the foul and hits. The 1-2 punches for each team going to work here so far. Little leaner in the lane by Nichols, no good. How about Davis, the and one?
That's there by Nichols. I love that she took that shot, even though she probably had
foul. Now they're saying don't. Meister, shot clock at 3, at 2. Davis from 16 hits.
Big 12 Radio, we are presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios, and we are so pleased to be joined right now by the OG, Joey Brackett, Joe Lunardi from ESPN, the OG bracketologist, the best information, the greatest. What's going on, Joey? How are you?
I'm told, Ari, that OG actually stands for oldest. And I think that's the bucket that I fall into.
Original.
Oh, is that what it is? All right, I'm still trying to get used to the whole 6'7" thing.
Yeah, right. Oh, trust me. With two boys at 7 and 10 years old, they make fun of me constantly for not having any idea of what they're talking about.
So how about this? The last game I called a St. Joe's game, which is my alma mater here in Philly, and they were winning at the end. Somebody hit a shot, a scrub, to get them to 67 points. And winning 6 of their last 7, right? So the whole student section is and I'm thinking,
what
is that like an obscene gesture?
Yeah,
I wasn't really sure.
Right, because the number that we used to always be associated was kind of obscene, right? Totally, it's like, am I supposed to be offended? Is this? Do I not avoid? Do I avoid? It is. You're right. It's bizarre.
I do know. I have a premonition that, if and when I miss a team this year, it's going to be a 6 or a 7th seed.
That's amazing. Great way to become a meme as well is on Selection Sunday for you to say that. And look, I mean, I cannot imagine the difficulty of the job this year because there's probably not like one elite team, but a lot of elite teams. And let's just start with last night. Last night was a lot of fun in the college basketball world. I'm a KU alum, so last night was a lot of fun for me. But you were saying last night not too much fun for a bracketologist.
Well, that's because, and we'll take you behind the curtain a little bit, right? The brackets go up every Tuesday and Friday morning. So because, at my advanced OG age, I like to sleep occasionally. I try to compile and post and have loaded a bracket, heading into the late games Monday night. So we don't stay up till 2 a.m, redoing it. And last night, with the number 1 overall seed involved in that game in Arizona, someone who might be me had to guess in advance in building a bracket the outcome of the game. And one may have guessed incorrectly, in spite of, for 35 minutes looking pretty small. And look, I know all the numbers there are to know. I know they've never lost on Big Monday. I know that, I've been to the Fog. I know Coach Self's record. I know all that stuff. But, if it's a 51-49 kind of situation, I built the bracket with Arizona right there. And whenever a team loses, anybody behind them on the seed list, it can juggle. So when the number 1 overall team loses, that's 67 dominoes. So it was a late night.
Well done.
That's all I'll say. But a great game because by the time it ended, I had enough adrenaline, what do they say in the Grinch, to do 10 brackets plus 2.
So what did last night mean for Arizona's quest for the number 1 overall seed? And this is kind of a two-parter. How low as a 1 seed would Arizona have to fall to not get the West?
They will get the West if they're a 1 seed of any stripe, 1, 2, 3, or 4.
That's kind of what I figured.
There's no other West team in contention to steal it. I mean, maybe Gonzaga at one point, but their loss at Portland last week, and that was a long shot to begin with. I mean, Arizona's resume and, just basketball quality, if you watch, is such that it would take a lot. Now, having said that, there was no way in what that they were going to go undefeated. Just look at the schedule.
Yeah.
I mean, at Kansas, at Houston, and that's just the top of the list. But I kept them number one overall. I went to bed with that. I slept on it. It's still Arizona and Michigan. There have been many weeks this year where one's been first in one poll and the other's been first in the second poll. But they each have one loss. Michigan's loss was a quad 2 at home to Wisconsin. Arizona's loss was last night. One of those is not like the other. And I kept Arizona over Michigan for that reason. Because bracketology is different than the poll voters. Like, the poll is more about when you lose, right? And you see that all the time in football, which makes it really dumb. But,
right.
They'll drop to 4th or 5th in the next poll, which is idiotic because there's no way there's 5 teams better than that.
Right. Well said. Is there anything that Houston or Iowa State or maybe even Kansas can do to get up to the 1 line? And I guess let's keep it to Houston, Iowa State, considering this morning you have them on the 2 line.
Yeah, but overall I have Houston 5th, Iowa State 7th, Kansas 9th. So they're all
in the mix,
in the hunt. I mean, look. A month from now, the top line is going to look like this: Duke, UConn, unless either has a complete collapse. Like, losing to their biggest challenger on the road by a basket doesn't count.
Right.
Okay, Duke, UConn, the Big Ten winner, and the Big 12 winner. So we don't really know who the Big 12 winner is going to be. And last night, some uncertainty was certainly thrown into the mix. And we don't know who the Big Ten winner is going to be. Michigan still has to play Illinois. Michigan still has to go to Purdue. Purdue's at Nebraska tonight. There's a lot to be said. So it looks like Arizona and Michigan today, but any of them could have a stretch of the schedule where they lose 2 out of 3 and drop while somebody sweeps. So you're right. There are, I'd say, 6 or 7 really, really good teams. They're not, Kentucky Anthony Davis good, but they're really, really good. And to me, Arizona and Michigan are still a cut above.
Yeah. Houston's interesting, too, because it almost feels like Houston probably doesn't care if they're a 1 or a 2 as long as they get the South region and end up playing a region final and semifinal in Houston.
Yeah, but that's no guarantee, because they would have to be maybe at the top of the 2 seed line to get Houston, because Kansas could be in play for that spot. Nebraska could be in play for that spot. And the subtext of the whole Duke-UConn battle to be number 1 in the East is the way the regions fall. Whoever's 4th overall, or at least in the Duke-UConn competition, goes to the South, where they could be the 1 to Houston's 2 in Houston. And not that the Duke or the UConn people would ever complain about anything. But
never.
I do get, the occasional text from, maybe the coach at UConn, and he's not going to like that.
No, he won't.
And he's probably going to blame it on me. Because why not?
I mean, all your job is to basically put together what you think the committee will do. Correct. So I know people get mad at you. It's like, how do you have this team out? I don't. I'm just going on what I think the committee will do.
Yeah, I've tried to tell people for years that I don't actually have a vote.
You're not on the committee.
I'm no different than the guy on the election night shows that says so-and-so is going to win because these are the exit polls.
Right.
But that's okay. It just kind of comes with the job, and I learned it didn't come easily at first, but, there's 365 teams. There's 68 spots. So that means at any given point in time, people in 297 places are going to hate my guts, and there isn't anything I can do about that. It's just math.
You're an easy target when the committee's kind of nameless and faceless. Joe Lenardi is not.
And if you can't take it, go be an accountant or a toll taker or
right.
something.
Yeah. Speaking of, your first 4 out as of this morning. Again, this was released at 9:03 this morning Central Time, so 30 minutes ago. As Joe said earlier, that this is a Tuesday. You said Tuesday, Friday, right?
Tuesday, Friday until Champ Week, and then we go daily.
Daily,
because who wouldn't want to do it every day? And sometimes more than once a day when we get into those big conference tournament days.
So you've got first 4 out, Oklahoma State, and then next 4 out includes so now it looks like West Virginia and TCU and Baylor are all part of the next 4 out. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I would call them, on the under consideration list. That's the official committee term, because they have a board. I mean, it's digital now, but it says under consideration.
So what? You've got 7 Big 12 teams getting in.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
and there's a pretty healthy gap after UCF, I guess, is the 7th today. As I look at it, they're a 9. So to go from a 9 seed to, first or next 4 out is a pretty big gap. And any of those teams that are below the cut line are at least an NCAA level win and maybe 2 away from moving up and in. So, if I had to bet a mortgage payment, I would say that the Big 12 is going to finish at 7. For better or worse. Now, they're a really, really strong 7. The last time I did it, I think the Big 12 and the Big 10 had 7 or 10 of the 16 teams on the top 4 lines, and that's a lot. It's not like last year with the SEC, but that was not just a lot. That was unprecedented and probably unrepeatable.
When it comes to like Oklahoma State in particular, they're 4-6, but they've got a lot of winnable games left. That doesn't include a Kansas game and a Houston game.
I would say they have a lot of opportunities left.
Got it. Go ahead. Sorry.
I mean, especially road games. I don't know that there's any in that league except maybe Utah where you'd go, oh, well, that's winnable.
Yeah, it's winnable. Yeah.
Possible, yes. But, we can count on 1, 2, 3, 4 wins to get to, I don't know about that.
So I guess what I'm asking is, they're at Arizona State tonight, then TCU, they have Kansas, at Colorado, West Virginia, at Cincinnati, at UCF, Houston. Let's say they don't win either the Houston or the Kansas game, but they win every other game.
Well, then they're going to get in.
They're going to get in.
Because they'll have too many quad 1 wins at that point to ignore. I mean, remember, North Carolina got in last year with 1 quad 1 win.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean that it was the right thing to do.
Right.
It wasn't. But, I promised myself I'd get over that. I didn't say when, though.
Well, look, in apples to apples, if Oklahoma State gets there at the end and has just the 1 quad 1 win that they got against BYU, like they ain't North Carolina, Joe.
Well, and that was my point at the time.
Right.
I talked to several committee members after the fact and still bump into them. And I'll say to one that might be the athletic director at a school, let's say, not named North Carolina, and I'll say one out loud because I'm here. I'm like, if Temple is 1-12 in quad 1, and I say it right to the gentleman, are you getting in? And, I can't really answer that, which is a way of saying no. Freaking way. And Carolina this year, God love them, they have 5 times as many quad 1 wins already as they did last year.
So
I guess they're really showing me.
Yeah, no kidding. So how would you sort of characterize the Big 12 this season? It's obviously top heavy.
Yeah, that's the word.
Yeah. So, I mean, does
on the seed list right now, 4 of the top 9 teams. Arizona, Houston, Iowa State, Kansas. And, that'd be a pretty good prop bet right there to take those 4 or the field. Right? And if somebody could give you Big 10 and Big 12 against the field, that'd be like the glory days of taking Tiger against the field at the Masters.
Wow. So what in your mind when you watch, because you're watching everybody, what stands out about Big 12 basketball more than maybe other leagues, or maybe there isn't anything?
I don't know if it's one thing. For me, it's always been about venues. Like, I think on television, and again, I live on the East Coast. I've been to a handful of Big 12 venues, but not many. I mean, a couple more now that there's new Big 12 teams that I've been to. Like, I've been to Arizona, I've been to Cincinnati, I've been to Colorado, I've been to Utah. It looks like winter night college basketball to me. Like, my favorite game of the week is always the 9 o'clock Eastern big Monday game. Because for me, again, last night being a bit of an exception, there's not really ever another game on at the same time that impacts the bracket. Okay? It's always at just a cold, mostly cold. I guess we have Arizona now, right? But it's just at something that says old-time college basketball to me. And Book Giambi and Fran Fraschilla is my favorite pair.
Yeah.
I'm close personal friends with both of them. And it's one of the few windows during the week where I get to usually just kind of sit and watch a whole game. Most of the time, I'm tracking lots of games at one time. Like, if that game was Saturday at 4 o'clock, I'd have 8 screens on and be ready to react or go on the air for a result from any of them.
Yeah.
But to be able to, like, sit and watch last night, that's really cool.
Yeah, and there's some good ones coming up, too, the rest of the way. The great Joe Lunardi, Joey Brackets, the original bracketologist from ESPN. Joe, thanks so much for your time and insight, man. You're the best. Thank you.
Yeah, and just say, for people who say I've never, touched a basketball, that's really not true. So there. Thanks.
Teflon.
That's it.
That's right. Joe Lunardi. Got to have thick skin. And, I mean, it is funny how people go after him like he's the one deciding this thing. Like, he's not the committee.
I'm Dr. Phil. I can't help it.
Joe Lunardi. We'll react to what we just heard from Joe next. This is Big 12 Today, presented by Modelo. Heard on TuneIn. Watched on Big 12 Studios.
Check out the top plays from the Big 12 women's basketball starting 5.
Is that now the second three-pointer for Fauntleroy?
Perry forces one up, and it was blocked. Baylor leads the Big 12 with 7 blocks per game. And another one goes for Scott.
It says when the shot clock is winding down, ball in the hands of Crawford is where she likes to have it.
Now Baylor's heating up from 3. Scott has hit 2 in a row.
To make any adjustments, right down the court, finds a little gap and a pull-up J.
Step back for Scott, and she drains it again.
And a strong, solid move through a lot of defensive contact by Abraham.
Scott, nothing but net from long range.
Keeping the game simple. And then for Baylor on the other end, right now the game
against West Virginia on Sunday, Cincinnati trying to do the same after a loss against Houston on Sunday. Scott lets it fly.
So Talia Scott, 19 points, 5 for 11 from the 3-point. We've seen Cincinnati be able to shut down Baylor defensively.
Scott right to the rim.
Baylor head coach Nikki Collins said we cannot give up offensive rebounds. That's going to be our Achilles heel when it comes to the Sun Devils team. That one was good for Talia Scott.
Finishing with her left hand, so hard to do.
Talia Scott going from deep. It's all net.
And then, of course, Talia Scott, what she does best, knocking down three-pointers with a hand in her face.
Back from Arizona State. They've only made 3 threes in this game. Talia Scott going for one right now.
Big 12 today on a busy Tuesday show. Reacting to Arizona-Kansas Big Monday last night, which lived up to the hype. Without Darren Peterson, Kansas gets the win. Obviously talk through the Darren Peterson saga and situation. I mean, as a Kansas fan and alum, it almost brings me greater joy to watch what they did last night without Darren Peterson. And I'm under no impression that this team is better without Peterson. On the floor, in terms of their offense, they have a much higher ceiling. I just think the mental part of it for the team, the psyche aspect of it, it's tiring. And it seems like nobody involved in this, beyond his dad, himself, and his agent, have any idea what he's going to do on a game-to-game basis. And that is a dangerous game to play in a one-game playoff situation that the NCAA tournament has. And so, like, it's easy to say the day after they beat the number one team in the country at home, oh, they should just shut him down and move on without him. That's an easy thing to say because they just looked so good, and, like, it'll never be that good. Like, it's their offense is much harder to come by when Darren Peterson's not on the floor, but it's a more fun team to root for. I don't know if it's a more fun team to watch because Peterson is damn good and he's fun to watch. But it's the in-out thing, the curiosity of it all, that just the toxicity of it on a game-to-game basis, I think, does so much more damage. Now, look, Bill Self is Hall of Fame coach who's in the midst of one of his best seasons of all time. So what do I know? And I imagine he's going to manage it the way he best sees fit, and that's most likely going to be the best situation that they could possibly have. But as a Kansas fan and alum, it is tiring to watch. And you're almost just waiting. Like, all right, is he going to play this game? And then if he plays, it's, all right, is he going to finish the game? It feels like that's the rule, whereas playing 34 minutes like he did against Utah on Saturday is the exception to the rule. This is Big 12 Today, Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo. The other part that I think it has been underplayed when it comes to the game last night, and I appreciate Tommy Lloyd, who was immediately asked after the game about Darren Peterson. Here, take a listen. Here's what Tommy Lloyd said following the Kansas win over Arizona last night at Allen Fieldhouse.
Guys, Kansas is a hell of a team. Let's not make this about Darren Peterson. He didn't play because he was sick. They beat the number one team in the country at home tonight. They did a hell of a job, and their coach did a hell of a job. That should be the story.
Man, I love me some Tommy Lloyd, man. He also was losing his mind on the non-travel call, which he clearly traveled. Clearly traveled. Now, everybody wants to make it about the refs again. Like, home teams get home calls. If you're going to attribute every one of the successes of Kansas basketball to calls at home, like I can't help you. Maybe it's a bad call that it all started going downhill for Arizona, but like they couldn't hit a bucket. I probably blame Arizona's inability to score a 10-minute stretch where they hit one shot from the floor, 1 of 14. I think I'd be more likely to attribute the loss to that. But the question I think that most people are grappling with, and this is a very common question that people have when teams are undefeated, is, was a loss a good thing? Did Arizona need a loss? And we've heard Tommy Lloyd talk about this all the time. Like, well, the media might say that, but like, no, you don't need losses. You can learn even from your team and wins. And I don't know that I necessarily agree with that. Now, he's the coach, so he might have a sense of what you can learn from wins and losses. But I just think the psyche of a player, like it's probably makes a greater impact as a player when you lose. From a coach, you always have things you can correct and coach and teach. Wins, losses, whatever, but do you as a player believe when you're 23-0 that you've got to fix those things? Because you haven't lost a game. It hasn't cost you yet. So you're not yet fully buying into the idea that you have to improve. You might have to believe you have to improve from the abstract, but figuring out the specific things you have to improve upon. In this game, what's the flaw that was pointed out for Arizona? I mean, they might have stretches where they can't score, and when you're not a high-volume three-point shooting team, that could be problematic. Maybe that's the takeaway. Maybe they're too reliant on their freshmen and Burries and Koa Pete. Maybe that's the takeaway. Did they need a loss? I don't know. I don't know. They were going to lose. Are those two things the same thing? T-Chains, what you're saying?
No, I was saying we got to hear what Tommy Lloyd said about all of this.
Got it. Let's hear what Tommy Lloyd had to say about all this.
If a guy's 38-0 on his home court on Big Mondays, it's probably pretty hard to win here, no matter what our record coming in is. So we knew it's going to be a tough game, and we're okay with it. Like, guys, I'm not mad we lost. I can't wait to get on that plane, get back home, and I feel like our season just started.
Love that from Tommy Lloyd. I feel like our season just started, right? So they've now suffered their first setback. And honestly, him saying that in many ways contradicts the comments about you can learn a lot about your team through wins, and that, only the media talks about the importance of losing games. Because now we can dig in, take a look at the film, and be like, this is where we failed. This is where we messed up. This is why we couldn't score. This is why we felt like we were stuck in mud for 10 minutes in the second half. There are probably a lot of things that Kansas did defensively to Arizona that they were not used to seeing. I mean, Flory Bidunga erases at the rim. The dude is incredible. He's like 6'7", 6'8", and he plays so much bigger than that. The fact that he blocked Krivas as often as he did, Krivas is 7'2". Dude's giving up 5 inches to Krivas. And Krivas had 6 blocks last night, too. He's a monster. These are two very similar teams, and I think like Kansas got them because they were at home. Sometimes it's just that big of a factor. Road games in the Big 12 are tough. Do they need a loss? I don't know. Do teams need losses? Whether they need them or they were going to get them anyways, that's the part to be. Like, they were going to lose. Whether it was this game or within the next few weeks. And by the way, they're probably going to lose again. Arizona plays Saturday against Texas Tech. That's at home. Then BYU at home next week. Then they hit the road to take on Houston at Houston before a game that weekend at Baylor. Then they get Kansas again at home. And then Iowa State. So they play the top 5 teams. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Kansas, Texas Tech, Houston, Iowa State, and BYU. Obviously, they can't play themselves. I mean, they play every one of them over their next final 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games. Texas Tech, BYU, Houston, Kansas, Iowa State. That's right there. If the Big 12 is top-heavy, they've got the top-heaviest of the top-heavy left. So the idea that they needed a loss here to learn more about themselves, like they were going to learn about themselves through the way they're going to play over these next 7 games. 8 if you include last night. What's their record? Taman, make a projection here.
They're 23.
Not counting
right
last
now.
night. What's their record in the last 7 games?
Oof.
Texas Tech, BYU, at Houston, at Baylor, Kansas, Iowa State, at Colorado.
6-1. I think they only won at Houston. I think as I know they had a tough loss last night, but it's hard to win at Allen Fieldhouse regardless. That was going to be the case if Darren Peterson had played or not.
Right.
But Arizona dominated that game for a half and a portion of a half.
Well, they were leading. I don't think they were dominating the game.
I mean, fair, but they were winning against a good team on the road, and it looked like they were going to win the game. That final 9 minutes, Kansas's defense was incredible, and Arizona went on a stretch where they couldn't score. Out of these next 7 games, the only team I think that can really do that to them is Houston. Houston is dominant. They're good defensively. They're very physical. I think going into their building, I think that Houston can limit those stretches. I don't know if the other teams can do that for that long like Kansas did last night.
I'll say 4-2, and they end up with 3 losses. But I think
that's 6 games.
Sorry, 5-2. Excuse me. Thank you. Yeah, because you said 6-1. And look, I mean, the Houston one's the obvious one. It's at Houston. We talk about the difficulty of playing road games, and then I'll give them one more loss. Whether that's, I mean, I don't see them losing to Kansas at home at the end of February, but maybe to Iowa State at home, in a situation where Iowa State's trying to stay in that 2 seed line. Yeah, man, 6-1 does kind of seem likely though. I'll give you that.
I just think that
there's 3 road games left out of the 7.
Yeah, I just think that, we've been talking about all year how they don't have a lot of flaws. And last night was maybe the biggest flaw that we saw from them.
Which is what?
Their lack of scoring for a certain amount of time. And they still almost won the game.
Yeah. I mean, look, all teams are going to go through stretches where they can't score. The question is, what within that did Kansas do to maybe make them uncomfortable? It would be interesting to see, though, if we kind of have talked throughout the year about how many losses will the Big 12 champ have. And, right now there's 2 teams with 1 loss and then a couple more teams with just 2 losses. So, and they all play each other. I mean, Houston here, Utah and K-State before Iowa State, Arizona, Kansas in 3 consecutive games. At Iowa State, Arizona at home, at Kansas on a big Monday. Will be very, very fun, man. This thing, the way they've backloaded this schedule, the Big 12 has struck gold with all these games down the stretch of the season against the 5 best teams in the league all playing each other. It is going to be spectacular. All right, thanks to James Westling, who will be back in studio tomorrow. Thanks to our producer, Anthony Smith with Big 12 Studios. Thanks to Taman Turner, T-Chains, our producer here at TuneIn. I'm Ari Temkin. Big 12 today is back tomorrow. We're breaking down the wide receiver position because the football season never sleeps. We're presented by Modelo. Heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios. We're back tomorrow, but for now we're out. Peace. Check out the top plays from this week's Big 12 women's basketball starting 5.
I say it's so interesting. Neither of these teams really outstanding in terms of three-point shooting or three-point